Chapter 779. Good news and bad news. To enjoy reading good news, bad news. Qingyuan lowered his eyes and thought for a while before saying, "Tell me the bad news first." This way, he would be pleasantly surprised to hear the good news. Yundong nodded. "All right, I'll tell you the good news first." "Are you freaking kidding me?" Qingyuan couldn't help but want to curse. "Were you asking for fun?" Not wanting to speak, he snorted and slumped in his chair with a look that said, "Hurry up and say it." Yundong said, Wenhuo followed us into the deep mountains last time. When we came out, we saw a robber. You should know about that, right? I know. Qingyuan glanced at them from the corner of his eye. Indeed, the two of them knew very well in their hearts. It was just that they didn't reveal it. Yundong nodded. Then, the good news is that we have another clue about the robber. Qingyuan was stunned and suddenly sat up straight. What clue? That robber was actually instructed by someone to rob the Tao family of the 4 jars of wine. The person who instructed him was the second young master of the Tao family, Tao Xing. Qingyuan was stunned. You're saying that the second young master of the Tao family got someone to snatch the wine that his family wanted to transport? Yundong nodded and explained the complicated relationship. Qingyuan understood that Tao Xing wanted to deal with Tao Feng, so he colluded with the robbers to do this. The robber knew Tao Xing, the Tao family. Qingyuan stroked his chin thoughtfully. It seemed that he should start investigating the Tao family. As Qingyuan thought about this, he stood up from his chair and looked like he was about to go out to find someone to do something. He had just taken a step when Yundong pulled him back, and he sat back in his chair. He looked up in surprise. "What are you doing?" "What do you think?" Yundong gritted her teeth. "Since I've said the good news, of course I have to say the bad news." "Oh right. I almost forgot about that." Qingyuan expressed that he did not want to hear it at all. Could he reject it? But looking at Yundong's round eyes, he could only give up and say resignedly, "All right, go ahead. It's still about the Tao family. We need your help." Yundong and Shao Qingyuan looked at each other and moved aside. This was Shao Qingyuan's background. It was better for him to say it himself. Meeting Qingyuan's suspicious gaze, Shao Qingyuan told him how he had been adopted by old Master Li, and how he had learned the truth. Then he told him the results of his own investigation. Qingyuan was dumbfounded. He was considered a knowledgeable person. He had never heard of one's biological father and grandmother degrading one like this. Killing was quick and painless, but these two people wanted a servant to torture their descendant until his body and mind were damaged. Living was more miserable than death. Just because of what a fortune teller said? Qingyuan was furious when he heard this. Although Shao Qingyuan had described his experiences since he was young casually, he knew that it would not be easy. He frowned tightly and thought for a moment before saying, "I understand. I'll consider this matter carefully." Yundong asked him, "Since Tao Xing is colluding with that robber, can we arrest him now before they find out Brother Shao's identity?" Qingyuan couldn't help but glare at her. "What lousy idea did you come up with? If we arrest Tao Xing now, we'll alert the enemy. We can only investigate how deeply Tao Xing and the robber are related first. Is it just hiring someone with money? Or are they very close? However, if you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 780. Yundong looks at him like he was a fool to enjoy reading. A glint flashed across Qingyuan's eyes, as if he was about to come up with a bad idea. Yundong's interest was piqued. "But what?" "You can cause some trouble for the Tao family," Qingyuan said with a smile. "Find more things for the Tao family, especially Tao Feng. Divert his attention and make him lose the energy to search for the third young master of the Tao family. Then Shao Qingyuan's identity won't be exposed. It would also buy him time to secretly investigate the Tao family. We'll tell you how to deal with the Tao family after we've investigated. If Tao Xing's matter is too big and you can't escape, then think of a way to make a contribution. If you're not involved, your identity won't be able to harm you even if it's exposed." However, according to Qingyuan's thoughts, Shao Qingyuan had provided clues time and time again, and he had already included him in the credit book. It did not matter much. Shao Qingyuan knew what was going on. What trouble are you referring to? Haha. Qin Wenzheng laughed. That's your problem. In any case, both of you are quite smart. I believe it won't be difficult for you to come up with an idea to trip the Tao family up. He looked like he was just going to provide an idea and leave the rest to them. Yundong snorted and looked at him as if she was looking at a fool. Don't think that she couldn't tell what Qin Wenzheng was up to. He was thinking that when they helped him, they would also help him divert their attention so that it would be easier for him to investigate, right? She couldn't bear to see him so smug. Yundong raised her eyebrows and said, Isn't it just to make Tao Feng unable to investigate the whereabouts of the third young master of the Tao family? It's not difficult. Oh, you already have an idea? Qin Wenzheng immediately looked at her with sparkling eyes. Yundong was indeed Yundong. She was quick-witted. It's simple. We can just let Tao Feng know that Tao Xing has his eyes on him. No matter what Tao Feng's motive is, he definitely doesn't want others to know that he's keeping such a low profile, especially Tao Xing. Qin Wenzheng was speechless. In that case, it made sense. He was still struggling. Then how do you plan to let Tao Feng know? You can't run to him personally and tell him that your secret has been exposed, right? Yundong shook her head. They'll hire someone to follow Tao Feng for a couple of days, and let him know that he's being followed. Tao Feng must be pondering who's following him. The first suspect will be Tao Xing, and Tao Xing is very confident of finding out Tao Feng's mistakes, so he's definitely not hasty. It's very abnormal that a person who's deprived of his power and who hates Tao Feng's guts should be so casual without setting up a trap for him. Yes, Tao Feng would suspect that Tao Xing knew something and followed him. As a result, Tao Feng didn't dare to do anything, especially looking for the third young master of the Tao family. To him, this was disobeying his father and grandmother. He would stop for a while and wait for Tao Xing to stop keeping an eye on him. This period of time was enough for Qin Wenzheng to investigate the Tao family and find out the results. Damn it, Yundong was a devil. Qin Wenzheng glared at her angrily. He suddenly swung his hand and left. Up to you. Yundong and Shao Qingyuan looked at each other and shrugged slightly. Why are you throwing a tantrum all of a sudden? Didn't I come up with a good idea? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 781. Chaos to enjoy reading. Shao Qingyuan chuckled and held her hand. Let's go back. Yundong was a woman of her word. For the next 2 days, she had Mao dress up and secretly guard the Tao family's door. When Mao saw Tao Feng come out, he would quickly follow him. Yundong had deliberately disguised Mao as the middle-aged man he had seen at Jinxiu restaurant that day. He had a beard, thick eyebrows, and wore a clean long robe. Upon closer inspection, Mao's original appearance could not be seen. Since the middle-aged man was with Tao Xing, Tao Feng might know him too. This made him even more certain that Tao Xing was watching him in the dark. Mao used to be a beggar, so he was very familiar with tracking people. Not only that, but 2 days later, he found another 2 people secretly following Tao Feng. They must be Tao Xing's men. However, the whereabouts of these 2 people were very secretive. If Mao didn't have a good memory and saw them 3 times in 2 days, he probably wouldn't have discovered them. Mao's whereabouts were exposed very quickly. When Tao Feng discovered him, he wanted to catch him. Unfortunately, Mao was agile and crawled around in the alley. Not long after, he entered the backyard of a restaurant and came out after changing his clothes. Tao Feng's servant returned empty-handed, but he described his appearance to Tao Feng. Tao Feng had indeed seen that middle-aged man before. He was angry, but he became much more cautious after that. Then Yundong asked Mao to leave. She couldn't possibly go too far. A few days later, they heard that the Tao family's eldest young master and second young master suddenly fought one day and smashed more than 10 jars of wine that the Tao family had stored in the warehouse. Old Lady Tao was so angry that she fainted. She scolded the 2 of them and lay on the bed, unable to get up. Master Tao was so angry that he beat up his 2 sons. Mrs. Tao looked at Tao Xing's bruised face and begged for mercy in front of Master Tao. At night, she kept whispering to him. Old Master Tao was biased towards Tao Xing to begin with. He was especially dissatisfied with Tao Feng and scolded him for not knowing how to take care of his younger brother as the eldest brother. He wanted to take back the power in Tao Feng's hands. Unfortunately, after the investigation, he found out that Tao Xing was the one who provoked him first. Even if he took back the power in Tao Feng's hands, he could not hand it over to Tao Xing. He could not handle it alone. Furthermore, Tao Feng had not been living in the Tao family for nothing all these years. Old Master Tao had two favored concubines who had long been bribed by Tao Feng. In addition, they had the same interests and enemies. They were also whispering to Old Master Tao. In the end, they were both his sons, so he could only give up on this matter. Because of this, Lady Tao had secretly dealt with the two concubines. For a moment, the Tao family was in an especially busy state. Old Madame Tao was bedridden for more than half a month. However, it was said that after that, Tao Xing and Tao Feng were completely irreconcilable. Tao Xing kept a close eye on Tao Feng. He wanted to catch Tao Feng's weakness, so Tao Feng had to be careful in everything he did. He had probably stopped searching for the third young master of the Tao family. These things entered Gu Yundong's ears one after another. Although it was not very detailed, she could more or less guess the development of the situation. Gu Yundong secretly heaved a sigh of relief. At least Tao Feng did not continue looking for his missing brother. However, she still had to think about how to make a contribution next. However, just as she was racking her brains, Tong Ping brought her a letter. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 782. Letter from the Prefectural City. Letter? Tong Ping had just returned from the Prefectural City, so this letter should be news from the Prefectural City. She took another look at the signature. Alright, it was written by Madame Dai and Ye Shuang. Gu Yundong thought that there was something wrong with the shop, and the two of them were asking for her ideas. She did not expect Ye Shuang's first sentence to be, "Are you planning to take root in Yongfu village, and not come to the Prefectural City?" Gu Yundong was speechless. No, definitely not. Don't talk nonsense. She continued reading. Fortunately, there was nothing important. They only mentioned the situation in the shop. Nowadays, the milk tea shop was very popular. It had become the favorite place for all the rich and young ladies in the Prefectural City. When they had nothing to do, they would come for afternoon tea. The sales of milk tea were very high, and the other snacks were very popular. There were also some rich ladies who lived far away that kept asking Madame Dai to open another shop not far from them. Madame Dai and Ye Shuang were very busy now. They left early and returned late every day. It was only when they had stabilized these few days that they finally had a chance to rest. It was just that Gu Yundong had been staying in Yongfu village and had not returned to the Prefectural City. This was a little unreasonable. Gu Yundong was a little embarrassed. All right. She had at least received a share of the profits. It seemed that she had only been busy for a few days when the shop just opened for business. After that, she had really quit. Gu Yundong folded the letter. Tong Shuetao asked curiously, "Miss, did Madame Dai and the others write it to you? What did they say?" "They told me to hurry back to the Prefectural City," Gu Yundong said helplessly. As soon as she finished speaking, she saw Gu Yunshu, who was eating at the side, run over and ask, "Eldest sister, are we going to the Prefectural City? When are we going? What should I prepare?" Gu Yundong was stunned. She looked at his flushed and excited face. She suddenly remembered that she had promised the little guy that she would bring him and Yuanzhi to the Prefectural City during the holidays. However, who knew that she would enter the deep mountains not long after returning to Yongfu village? After returning, she was delayed for a few days because of Niu Dan. Then she was busy with Kiki's birthday. After hearing about the Tao family, she focused on the Tao family. Now the clothes-making vacation was about to end, but she had not fulfilled her promise. Gu Yundong pinched his tender face. "Yes, we'll go to the Prefectural City tomorrow morning." The child's eyes lit up. Indeed, he was even happier. He cheered and quickly ran to find Yuanzhi. "Cousin Yuanzhi, we can go to the Prefectural City. Let me tell you, the Prefectural City of Xuanhe Prefecture is very big. The city wall is very tall. More taller than 100 me stacked together. The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. Then she laughed and exhaled. She put away the letter and went to the Shao family to look for Shao Qingyuan. She planned to tell him, but she did not know if brother Shao would go. Unexpectedly, Mao and the others heaved a sigh of relief when they heard that she was going to the prefectural city. Gu Yundong was puzzled. What are you doing? You look as if I made you suffer in Yongfu village. Are you looking for a beating? No. Absolutely not. The few of them waved their hands and shook their heads. Seeing Gu Yundong narrow her eyes, Mao laughed dryly and said, Actually, young master and I had long wanted to go to the prefectural city. We have been waiting for you. Gu Yundong was stunned. Had they already planned to go to the prefectural city? Why are you going to the prefectural city? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 783. All to the prefectural city. Didn't I tell you last time? Mao said. Our young master found a doctor and plans to open the shop in the prefecture capital. Gu Yundong suddenly remembered. When she heard the news about the Tao family, she couldn't wait to discuss it with Shao Qingyuan. However, he was not around at that time. He had gone to find a doctor with good medical skills and morals. That doctor was originally a doctor in a medical center in the county. However, he was very stubborn and did not know how to put in a good word. He did not know how to be flexible and did not have a good relationship with the shopkeeper or the medicine boy in the medical center. If not for his brilliant medical skills, the shopkeeper would have chased him out long ago. In the end, not long ago, another doctor with equally brilliant medical skills suddenly came to the medical center. The shopkeeper did not hesitate to kick this stubborn old doctor away. When Shao Qingyuan went to the doctor, he was unwilling to follow him to the prefectural city to see the medicine shop. It was Shao Qingyuan who said that there were more doctors in the prefectural city, and they could discuss and learn medicine from each other. In addition, Shao Qingyuan had the talent to learn medicine. This was the main reason why the doctor agreed in the end. In that case, Shao Qingyuan was going to the prefecture capital at that time? She slapped her forehead. Why didn't you guys warn me? Mao said aggrievedly. It's because you're busy and you're troubled by young master's matters. How can we disturb you again? Gu Yundong was speechless. So although Yunshu and the others all wanted to go to the prefectural city, they did not mention it because she was troubled? Actually, even if she was paying attention to the Tao residents and didn't leave Yongfu village, others could still go to the prefectural city. However, after thinking about it, it was impossible. All of them saw that she was troubled all day and could not leave in peace. Gu Yundong's heart ached and swelled. It was a little bitter and warm. Qingyuan was investigating the Tao family now, so Tao Feng and Tao Xing did not have the energy to look for Shao Qingyuan. Then she would go to the prefectural city to take a look. She couldn't just leave the shop alone, especially the milk tea shop. Ever since it opened, she had not gone over to take a look. Thus, Gu Yundong waved her hand and brought her entire family to the prefectural city tomorrow. The children happily began to pack their things. The next morning, they set off in a mighty manner. Looking at the excited Gu Yunshu and Bian Yuanzhi, Gu Yundong also relaxed. Forget it. Let's put the matter of the Tao family aside first. The carriage arrived at the Xuanhe prefecture in the evening. Yuanzhi looked at the city wall in front of him and weighed it slightly. He thought to himself that he didn't need 100 yuanshus to reach its height. After entering the city gate, although it was already a little late, compared to the county city, the prefectural city was still very lively. Yunshu and Yuanzhi stuck their necks out and squeezed by the window. They were dazzled. Sister, where is our shop? It's still a few streets away, Gu Yundong said. Kiki had also woken up, and she rubbed her eyes and squeezed over. The three little heads almost squeezed each other into a meat patty. She wanted to laugh. The carriage finally arrived an hour later. As Shuirong was the first to ride back and give instructions, when Gu Yundong and his family arrived home, the food was already hot. Yunshu and Yuanzhi bounced around in the courtyard. Eldest sister, is this our home? Cousin, where is the milk tea shop? Shall we go tomorrow? Yes, I'll bring you to the shop tomorrow. Just as Gu Yundong agreed, Lu Xing whispered, Miss, I'm afraid it's not appropriate to go on the streets tomorrow. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 784. Father, you don't understand. The smile on Gu Yundong's face froze. What's wrong? What's going to happen tomorrow? Lu Xing nodded. The entire city will be under martial law tomorrow. This time not only Gu Yundong, but even Gu Dajiang stopped. Why? Tomorrow, a group of prisoners will be paraded on the streets and dragged to the entrance of the market to be executed. Master and Miss came back at the right time. If you come tomorrow, I'm afraid you wouldn't even be able to enter the city tomorrow. This was the first time Gu Yundong had encountered such a thing. If the culprits were to be executed, she could not walk around. Lu Xing continued. Although they want pass by the entrances of the two shops, there are too many people and it's rather chaotic. Gu Yundong looked at Yunshu and Yuanzhi. They were still young. In fact, she did not object to bringing the children to watch the parade. After all, they were already literate in school, and would probably have to take an official career in the future. There was nothing to avoid. However, she was afraid that the scene would be too chaotic, and someone would take the opportunity to steal the children. In particular, who knew if someone would try to rescue the prisoners? If there were too many people, it was easy to get injured from stepping. So let's wait for them to grow up a little. When the two of them heard that they could not go out on the streets, they were immediately disappointed. After all, their vacation was not long anymore. Every day counted. However, they also knew that they would definitely add trouble tomorrow. Therefore, they could only nod obediently. However, the excitement from before had already disappeared, and they were a little tired. Lu Xing was a little vexed. He felt that he had done something wrong. He should not have brought it up at this time. But Gu Yundong stepped forward and put her arm around their shoulders. It's nothing serious. Even if we can't go out on the streets tomorrow, we can still walk around this area, right? This area is not far from Tianhai Academy. The people living nearby are all scholars. You can meet one every 2 steps you take. There are also many students around your age. Perhaps you can make friends. When the two of them heard this, they were instantly interested. Can we play nearby? Sure. There's a child next door. Kiki knows him. I'll get Kiki to bring you guys there tomorrow. The little girl immediately nodded and patted her chest hard. Yes, follow me and you'll have food to eat. Gu Yundong knocked her on the head. Who did you learn these words from? Ago, who was standing at the back, shrunk his head silently. You can't see me, you can't see me, you can't see me. Yunshu and Yuanzhi finally became happy again. The two of them surrounded Kiki and asked questions. Gu Yundong and Gu Dajiang looked at each other before shrugging and going to eat. After all, they were tired from sitting in the carriage all day. After dinner, they returned to their rooms to rest. Shao Qingyuan brought Mao and the others back to the shop he had bought. The next morning, Gu Yundong put on her clothes and prepared to go out. Unexpectedly, when she opened the door, Gu Dajiang was already standing outside. Gu Yundong was speechless. She laughed dryly. Good morning, father. Gu Dajiang snorted. It's rare for you to wake up so early. It looks like you don't want to wake anyone up. Why? Where are you going? Gu Yundong saw his understanding expression and decided not to beat around the bush. I just want to see the streets. Beheading? What's there to see? Gu Yundong sighed slightly. Father, you don't understand. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 785. A peaceful life for a good person. Then tell me and I'll understand. Seeing this, Gu Yundong immediately said righteously, I'm watching the parade to warn myself. Father, you know that my business is expanding and am interacting with more people. My life will definitely get better in the future. I'm afraid that money will corrupt my heart and I'll lose myself, so I'm going to see what happens to those bad people. I'm always telling myself to be a good person. A good person would have a peaceful life. Gu Dajiang was stunned. He looked at Gu Yundong for a long time and said in relief, I didn't expect you to have such awareness at such a young age. Gu Yundong nodded solemnly. She did not expect her to explain the word curiosity so eloquently. Father, I'll set off then. Wait. Gu Dajiang waved his hand and said, the weather is cold. Go back to your room and put on more clothes before going out. Gu Yundong was not actually cold, but there was a kind of coldness because your father felt that you were cold, so she obediently went back and added a cloak. Unexpectedly, when she was about to go out, her father also brought a coat and followed her. You're right. Not only do you need to be vigilant, but I also need to be vigilant. I'm a scholar, and I don't know how far I'll go in the future. In the future, I have to educate Yunshu and the others. I should stay sober. I'll go with you to take a look. Gu Yundong was speechless. Father, why are you so self-aware? She sighed inwardly. In the end, she went out and got into the carriage. Shuirong was already waiting there. Gu Yundong finally instructed Aunt Neo, who was making breakfast. Later, tell Shuetao and Hongxiu to take good care of the children. Don't worry, eldest Mississippi'll help them take care of Madam and the others. Only then did Gu Yundong lift the curtain and get into the carriage with Gu Dajiang. It was still early, and there were not many people on the streets. However, the courtyard was a little far from the entrance of the market. The prisoners would walk from the cell to the market entrance, but they would walk very slowly and take a detour in the middle. When the carriage reached the main road not far from the entrance of the market, the number of people on the street gradually increased. Gu Yundong and Gu Dajiang had breakfast at a wonton stall. There were also many people in the stall. They seemed to be here to watch the parade. Gu Yundong also did not understand why everyone was so passionate about such things. What was there to see? It wasn't like her, who had come to broaden her horizons because she had never seen it before. After dinner, Gu Yundong entered a nearby tea house and booked a table on the second floor. Fortunately, she came early. Otherwise, there wouldn't even be a seat here. It was said that someone had come to reserve a seat a few days ago. Gu Yundong was speechless. It was not the parade of a top scholar. Why so many people? She shook her head and drank her tea while waiting. She also took a look at the scenery downstairs. She had never been to this area before. In her memory, she seemed to have passed by it once. Looking out from the second floor, she actually saw a slightly familiar figure coming out of a mansion. Steward Zhou? Could it be that the mansion was coincidentally? A waiter from the tea house brought over a plate of peanuts. Gu Yundong pointed in that direction. Buddy, which family is that? Following her finger, the shop assistant smiled. That's the Zhou mansion. Zhou mansion. Sure enough, it was Zhou Dafa's house. It turned out that his residence was in this area. Speaking of which, Steward Zhou had messed up such a big matter last time, but he had not been chased away by Zhou Dafu. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 786. She's not a devil. Gu Yundong watched as Steward Zhou walked over. Not long after, he walked into the tea house and hurriedly went upstairs. He seemed to be here to reserve a seat, but just as he was about to speak to the waiter, he saw Gu Yundong, who was sitting on the second floor and looking at him with a faint smile. Steward Zhou's expression changed drastically. He turned around and left. Gu Yundong was instantly amused. She was not a devil, and this was not his territory or his tea house. Would she not be allowed to sit here? Steward Zhou left the tea house and looked up. Unexpectedly, his eyes met Gu Yundong's. His face turned pale and he hurriedly ran back to the Zhou residence. Gu Yundong was speechless. Ever since Steward Zhou entered the residence, no one had come out from that door. Of course, she couldn't see the back door of the Zhou mansion, and she didn't know if they would use the back door. Gu Yundong could not help but rub her nose. It seemed that he was so scared that he did not even dare to leave the house. It was simply a sin. As she was thinking, she suddenly heard exclamations. Coming, coming. Gu Dajiang also said, the prison vans are here. Gu Yundong no longer paid attention to the Zhou mansion. She looked at the 3 prison vans passing by the street downstairs. There was only one person in the first 2 prison carts, but there were 3 people squatting in the last one. This time, these 5 people were the ones who were to be executed. The prison carts were extremely slow, so it did not stop the onlookers by the roadside from throwing mud and rotten leaves at them. The people at the table next to Yundong were chatting. They were talking about the death row prisoners in the prison cart. Serves them right. This kind of evil bandit should have been executed long ago. Someone seemed to not know the identities of the prisoners and asked, "Are these bandits?" "What else?" Those who knew looked indignant. "You haven't forgotten what happened in Qingyuan Prefecture last year, right? Back then, the bandit leader barged into the government office and even dared to kill the officials. They also robbed all the rich families in the city. What's even more abominable is that they didn't let go of those innocent citizens. They killed everyone they saw. They're worse than beasts." They used the refugees outside the city at that time to incite the refugees to break into the prefectural city, so that they could fish in troubled waters and do all kinds of bad things. Fortunately, Commander Zhou of our Shuanhe prefecture led troops to quell the chaos back then. They killed and captured a lot of criminals, but that bandit leader still escaped. It was not easy for him to run to our Shuanhe prefecture until he was captured. The 5 people who were executed today were the remnants of that group of bandits. They were arrested one after another in the past year. Do you see the men in the 2 prison carts in front? Those 2 are small leaders. I heard that they killed a few people during the robbery. The last 3 aren't good people either. They're all ruthless people who do bad things. As he spoke, the person suddenly lowered his voice and whispered, "I also heard that someone might come to rescue the prisoners today." Everyone was shocked. Someone might come to rescue the prisoners? Then how dare you come out here to watch the commotion? That person snorted softly. What's there to be afraid of? The government office has already sent people to the surrounding area with many soldiers. It's fine if they don't come to rescue the prisoners. As long as they come, they won't be able to return. We're on the 2nd floor of this tea house. We're safe. Yundong was speechless. You're amazing. You even know about the government office. Moreover, the 2nd floor is not safe at all. She and Gu Dajiang looked at each other. So this was the identity of the prisoner downstairs. Speaking of which, they had an ill-fated encounter with the father and daughter. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 787. The woman who suddenly fell. The streets were still filled with voices and curses. The few prisoners had probably suffered a lot in the cell. Now, they could be beaten and scolded as they pleased, as if they were numb puppets. However, they were only a kilometer away from the entrance of the market. If someone really came to rescue the prisoners, they should have come. Otherwise, they would have to go to the entrance of the market and shout for the executioners to hold back. Unfortunately, even when the prison carts gradually disappeared, no one seemed to be rescuing the prisoners. The young man in the tea house who had previously made a solemn vow laughed dryly and said, "Maybe there might be an ambush at the entrance of the market. Why don't we go to the entrance of the market to take a look?" "No, if there's really an ambush, what if we suffer?" Gu Dajiang also heard the conversation and nodded repeatedly. He said sternly to Gu Yundong, "You're not allowed to go either." Gu Yundong did not know whether to laugh or cry. "I don't plan to go. Let's just wait for the news. They'll be executed at noon. We can go back after lunch." Gu Dajiang was relieved. He was really afraid that his daughter would go and watch the beheading in order to warn herself. It was so bloody and not suitable for girls to see. It was because of this that he had to follow her out. Gu Yundong and his daughter were not the only ones. There were not many people on the 2nd floor who left after watching the commotion. They seemed to be waiting for noon, causing the entire tea house's business to be exceptionally good. The crowd downstairs had already dispersed. Some went to the entrance of the market, while others went home after watching the commotion and throwing the rotten vegetables. Gu Yundong and Gu Dajiang drank tea and waited until noon. They also ordered a few dishes. When it was time, someone quickly ran over and said, "Those bandits have been executed." "That's great, that's great." Cheers instantly erupted in the tea house. Gu Yundong was shocked. She saw that many people's faces revealed expressions of relief. Some people's eyes even turned red, and they clenched their fists tightly. She instantly understood that everyone hated this kind of bandit who committed all kinds of evil. Gu Yundong also smiled happily. After settling the bill with Gu Dajiang, she got up and went downstairs. Shui Rong went to bring the carriage over. While Gu Yundong and Shui Rong were waiting downstairs, many people came down from the second floor. The entrance of the tea house suddenly became crowded. In addition, many people had returned from watching the commotion at the entrance of the market. There were suddenly many more people on the streets. Gu Yundong and Gu Dajiang looked at each other and smiled bitterly. They should have left later. Now they could only hope that Shui Rong would bring the carriage over as soon as possible. Just as they were thinking about it, she saw Shui Rong walking over. Gu Yundong heaved a sigh of relief. After helping Gu Dajiang into the carriage, she asked Shui Rong to leave quickly and go home. Unexpectedly, just as Shui Rong pulled the reins and before the horse could take a step, a person suddenly staggered out and fell straight in front of the carriage. Shui Rong was speechless. "You can't play like this. If you want to extort me, at least wait until my carriage starts to move." There were so many people watching. They could all testify that you fell down yourself. The person who fell to the ground was a woman with a bag in her hand. When she fell just now, everything in the bag fell out, and a few even rolled under the carriage. She picked them up in a hurry, panic on her face. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I'll pick them up now." Shui Rong was stunned. She's not here to extort? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 788. Is this her aunt? The carriage did not move for a long time. Gu Yundong lifted the curtain and looked outside. "What's wrong? Did something happen?" Shui Rong pointed ahead and said, "Someone fell out. There should be a lot of people and she was squeezed out." After saying that, the people who had been squeezing around hurriedly stood far away, as if they were afraid that this person would cling to them. Gu Yundong looked at the person. She looked like a thin woman. Her hair was messy, and her clothes were very tattered. The weather was already a little cold, but her clothes were still very thin. They hung loosely on her body, making her look like a refugee when Gu Yundong entered the city last year. More importantly, Gu Yundong saw some scars on her thin arms. She held an old bag in her hand and squatted on the ground to pick up the wooden carvings scattered nearby. Yes, they were all wooden carvings. They were very small. There were wooden hairpins, spinning tops for children, and small boxes. The most exquisite one was the small screen that had fallen out but was already broken. Gu Yundong had just finished looking when Gu Dajiang alighted from the carriage. He squatted down and helped pick up the wooden carvings on the ground. Shui Rong and Gu Yundong also hurriedly got down. A few of the wooden carvings rolled further away, and Shui Rong crawled under the carriage. Gu Dajiang stuffed all the wooden carvings in his hand into Gu Yundong's hand. The latter carried them to the woman. "Auntie, this is for you. Keep it well. Be careful." "Ah, thank you, Mississippi." The woman opened the bag and placed the wooden carvings inside with trembling fingers. Then she kept apologizing. "I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to fall in front of your carriage. I've wasted your time. I'll leave now. Thank you." As she spoke, she turned around and staggered forward. Gu Yundong sighed softly and turned to return to the carriage. Unexpectedly, when she turned around, she saw Gu Dajiang standing rooted to the ground in shock. Then he suddenly took 2 steps forward and grabbed the woman's arm. Gu Yundong was shocked. "Father, what are you doing?" The woman was also frightened. She lowered her head and wanted to avoid him, but Gu Dajiang was strong. Not to mention that this woman was skinny and weak. Even if she were strong, she wouldn't be able to break free. She was being pulled by a man in public. How could she not be embarrassed? "What are you doing? Let go of me." Someone was already looking over. Gu Yundong quickly stepped forward to block the two of them, and pulled Gu Dajiang's hand away. "Father, what are you doing? Let's talk nicely." Gu Dajiang stared at the woman with anticipation and fear in his eyes. His throat was dry. After a long time he said in a hoarse voice, "You, raise your head for me to see." The woman was shocked and quickly took a step back. Gu Dajiang took a step forward, and Gu Yundong looked suspiciously at the woman. The woman felt her head buzzing, as if many people were pointing at them. What are these two doing? Aren't they afraid of being laughed at in broad daylight? This man looks quite rich, and the woman seems to be a beggar. Do people nowadays have such strange tastes? Has he taken a fancy to a beggar? The long-term malnutrition made the woman lose her balance and feel dizzy. She lowered her head and strode forward. Gu Dajiang suddenly shouted, "Gu Dafeng." Gu Yundong raised her head in shock and looked at the figure with her back facing her. Gu Dafeng? Her eldest aunt's name? This was her eldest aunt? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 789. Brother and Sister Reunion. Gu Yundong had a deep breath, took a few quick steps, and suddenly stood in front of the woman. The woman kept her head lowered and never looked up. Hence, she did not notice what she looked like previously. Gu Dajiang could tell her identity from her voice. They had been siblings for many years. He was too familiar with his sister. Dafeng, you're Gu Dafeng, right? Gu Dajiang also walked over quickly. He didn't even dare to breathe too loudly. He was afraid that she wasn't Gu Dafeng, afraid that the hope that he had painstakingly ignited would be extinguished again. Finally, the woman slowly raised her head, trembling. That familiar face made Gu Dajiang's eyes turn red and his body tremble. Gu Dafeng saw Gu Dajiang clearly and tears streamed down her face. Di Dajiang, are you Dajiang? There was also a look of disbelief on her face. It was as if everything was a dream. Gu Dafeng reached out, wanting to touch her but not daring to. In front of her was Gu Dajiang. He had the same face as before. No, he looked much better than before, and had gained a lot of weight. However, the clothes he was wearing were worlds apart from before. She did not dare to recognize him or believe her eyes. A gust of wind blew over. It was unknown if it was cold or shocking, but Gu Dafeng's body trembled violently. Seeing this, Gu Yundong quickly took off his cloak and put it on her. Gu Dafeng couldn't hold it in anymore and burst into tears. Brother, you're my brother. You're really my brother. I've finally seen you. Boo-hoo, she cried sadly. Gu Yundong hugged her tightly and felt the touch of bones under her cloak. She knew that her eldest aunt must have had a very difficult time over the past year. Sister. Gu Dajiang's tears fell uncontrollably. We finally found you. We finally found you. Boo-hoo, Gu Dafeng only cried. All the grievances and suppressed pain in her heart were released, making her unable to say a word. The surrounding people looked at each other. What was going on? Was this a reunion between siblings? It actually looked a little sad. Judging from the way this family were dressed, they must be living well. However, from the woman's appearance, it could be seen that she had suffered a lot. Some people looked over and whispered to each other, making guesses. Gu Yundong frowned and said to Gu Dajiang, Father, let's get into the carriage and go back first. Gu Dajiang nodded repeatedly. Sister, come get in the carriage first. It's windy and cold outside. Gu Dafeng shook her head repeatedly as she cried. Ooh. No, I can't. Your brother-in-law. Before she could finish speaking, her breath dissipated. Her legs went weak and she fainted. Eldest aunt, what's wrong? Fortunately, Gu Yundong had been supporting her. Otherwise, she would have fallen to the ground. Gu Dajiang quickly hugged her. Let's go to the medical center first. Coincidentally, there was one nearby. Gu Dajiang hurriedly carried her in, and kept calling for a doctor. Doctor, quickly save her. Gu Yundong hurriedly instructed Shuirong to bring the carriage to the side and wait. Then she hurriedly followed. Someone immediately walked out of the clinic and took her pulse carefully. He said, Don't worry, it's nothing serious. She just hasn't eaten for a long time and is weak. Coupled with her excitement, she fainted. She'll be fine after resting for a while. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 790. Still alive. How great! Gu Dajiang heaved a sigh of relief, but when he thought of how the doctor had said that she hadn't eaten for a long time, he frowned again. He wondered where his sister had been for the past year or so, and what kind of life she had led. And brother-in-law. By the way, brother-in-law, Gu Dajiang thought of the wooden carvings. His brother-in-law used to be a carpenter. These wooden carvings should have been carved by his brother-in-law. Back then, he had gotten off the carriage to help pick them up because he had seen the wooden carvings. In that case, his brother-in-law was still alive. However, their life was probably not easy. Still, at least they were alive. Gu Dajiang heaved a sigh of relief. She looked at the unconscious Gu Dafeng and felt very uneasy. Father, I'll go to the restaurant next door to buy a bowl of porridge. When eldest aunt wakes up, I'll fill her stomach and warm her up, Gu Yundong said softly. Gu Dajiang looked up. Thank you. Not at all. Finding eldest aunt is more important than anything else. She smiled and ran out of the clinic. The crowd had already dispersed. Gu Yundong entered the restaurant next door and ordered a bowl of hot porridge and stir-fried some side dishes. People who had not eaten for a long time should not eat greasy food, so she only made 2 vegetarian dishes with minced meat. When she returned with the food box, eldest aunt Gu was still unconscious. Gu Dajiang frowned at the side, deep in thought. Father, what's wrong? Gu Dajiang sighed slightly and stood up to pull Gu Yundong to the side. He said in a low voice, I'm afraid that she won't be able to take it if I tell her about Mulan. Gu Yundong thought for a moment. Then let's not talk about it for now. We'll tell eldest aunt when she gets better. Sigh, that's good too. With Yuanzhi around, your aunt can be stronger. Gu Yundong felt that. Actually, father, you don't have to worry too much. Ever since we escaped last year, there have been too many such things. In the past year or so, I think eldest aunt and eldest uncle have already prepared for the worst. Although that was the case, before confirming the news, they could still comfort themselves and say that they had a glimmer of hope. As the father and daughter were talking, a faint voice suddenly came from behind. The two of them hurriedly turned around and saw that eldest aunt Gu had indeed woken up. She looked dazed, as if she hadn't registered where she was or remembered what had happened before she had passed out. However, when Gu Dajiang and Gu Yundong stood in front of her, she said with a trembling voice, I'm not dreaming. Brother, it's really you. Gu Dajiang sat on a chair at the side. It's me, sister. I'm Dajiang. You're not dreaming. Gu Yundong obediently greeted, Aunt. Yundong, it's Yundong. She reached out and grabbed Gu Yundong's hand tightly. But compared to Gu Yundong's delicate hands, eldest Aunt Gu's hands were so thin that they looked like bones. Gu Yundong felt a little sad. Aunt, the doctor said that you haven't eaten for a long time. I bought porridge. Eat something to fill your stomach first, and then we can talk nicely, okay? Gu Dajiang had already taken out a bowl and spoon. He scooped a mouthful and handed it over. Tears welled up in the corners of Gu Dafeng's eyes. She choked up a little and nodded. Then she opened her mouth and took a bite. After swallowing the soft porridge, she seemed to warm up. Looking at her brother in front of her, Gu Dafeng wanted to cry and laugh. It was great that her brother was still alive and her niece was fine. She didn't even dare to think about meeting them again in the past. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 791. They are now people of the Zhou mansion. After eating the porridge, Gu Dajiang helped her sit down and asked her in a low voice, Have you been in Shuanhe Prefecture for the past year? Where do you live? Where's brother-in-law? At the mention of her husband, Gu Dafeng's face turned slightly pale. She covered her face with both hands, her voice anguished. Your brother-in-law's legs are broken. Gu Dajiang's pupils constricted. His legs were broken? Gu Yundong also frowned. Indeed, her eldest aunt's life was very difficult. She squatted down and gently stroked her back. She said softly, Then where are you staying now? Let's bring uncle here and let the doctor take a look. Find the best doctor in the prefectural city. I happen to know someone from Huimin Medical Center. Let's get the doctor from the medical center to take a look. Perhaps he can get better? Gu Dafeng was stunned and looked up. Really? A glimmer of hope lit in her eyes. Can he really be cured? Gu Yundong did not dare to give her an affirmative answer in case she was disappointed again. We have to find a doctor to take a look first. If the doctor at Huimin Medical Center can't treat him, we'll go to the capital. There will be a way. She knew Song Dejiang in the capital. Gu Dafeng's voice trembled slightly. Yes. Then where is uncle? Shall we pick him up now? However, at the mention of this, Gu Dafeng fell silent again. After a while she said, He's at the Zhou mansion. Zhou mansion? Gu Yundong frowned. Zhou. She was suddenly stunned and asked in a low voice, Is the Zhou mansion you're talking about the one across the street owned by Zhou Dafu? Yes. Why are you there? Gu Yundong looked at Gu Dafeng. Her clothes were tattered and she was thin. Could it be that Zhou Dafu was abusing them? Gu Dafeng pursed her lips, finding it difficult to speak. We're servants of the Zhou family now. Gu Dajiang and Gu Yundong's expressions changed at the same time. Eldest aunt and her husband had become servants of the Zhou family. In that case, their lives would be decided by the Zhou family without any freedom. Brother Yundong, forget it. Our current identities. Gu Dafeng also realized that there was still a huge difference. The Zhou family was rich and powerful. Although her brother seemed to be doing well now, he was probably much worse than the Zhou family. She knew that her eldest brother would definitely feel sorry for her. Knowing that she and her husband were in a difficult situation, he would definitely bring them out. But how? In Gu Dafeng's heart, the Zhou mansion was a huge force. If her eldest brother went against the Zhou mansion, not only would he not be able to bring them out, but she would also implicate her eldest brother. No matter what, I'm already very happy and satisfied to see you guys again. Gu Dafeng was indeed happy. She thought that she would never see these relatives again in her life. She actually wanted to ask Gu Dajiang if there was any news of her children. Had Mulan and Yuanzhi returned to Yongning Prefecture? However, she did not dare to do so now, afraid that she would receive bad news. Gu Dafeng wiped her tears. It's getting late. I sneaked out of the Zhou mansion. I have to go back. Otherwise, if I'm discovered, your brother-in-law will be blamed. Will you live in the Xuanha Prefecture in the future? Then I'll find a chance to come out next time and see you again. She got up and was about to leave when Gu Yundong hurriedly pulled her back. Eldest aunt, you don't have to go back. If you're servants of the Zhou mansion, we can pay some money and buy you back. When the time comes, we'll take the indenture and remove the slave status. Then, our family will be able to live together. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 792. She's old Master Zhou's concubine. She could not understand why her eldest aunt was so pessimistic. Why did she not seem to have any hope at all? It was just freeing 2 servants. Unexpectedly, Gu Dafeng shook her head and smiled bitterly. She won't agree. She won't agree. She? Gu Yundong frowned. Who is she? Zhou Dafu? If Zhou Dafu didn't agree, she would rush to the Zhou residence to beat him up. No, it's not Zhou Dafu. Gu Dafeng's fingers trembled slightly, and her face was a little pale, as if she found it difficult to speak. After a long time, she looked at Gu Dajiang steadily and said in a light voice, Yes, it's Gu Qingyuan. We're Gu Qi's servants now. She won't agree. Gu Dajiang and Gu Yundong looked at her in disbelief, suspecting that there was something wrong with their ears. Gu Qingyuan? Gu Yundong murmured. Isn't Gu Qingyuan dead? Back then, it was Fu Ming who told her personally that other than him, Gu Qingyuan, their daughter, and their parents had all died in the chaos. But now, eldest aunt was telling them that Gu Qingyuan was still alive. Not only was she alive, but she also seemed to be living quite well. Gu Dajiang calmed down a little, and his expression became especially solemn. He looked at Gu Dafeng and said, Sister, tell me exactly what happened. What did she mean by Gu Qi's servants? This was ridiculous. They were Gu Qi's elder sister and brother-in-law. How could she make her elder sister and brother-in-law sign a slave contract and become her servants? What was she thinking? Gu Dafeng looked at his sullen face and paused for a moment. In the end, she still said, Gu Qingyuan is now old Master Zhou's concubine. Damn it! Even Gu Yundong admired her. Gu Qingyuan was someone who had been married and had children. How could that old man Zhou Dafu take her in as his concubine? Gu Dafeng was talking about what happened last year. Last year, they had fled to Qingyuan Prefecture. However, when they were about to reach Qingyuan Prefecture, they were separated from their children and in-laws. At that time, they didn't have time to say anything. They didn't even think of where to meet up. It was already good enough that they could save their lives in such a hurry. Gu Dafeng and his husband could only head to the Qingyuan prefecture that was closest to them. They were a step too late. The Qingyuan prefecture was already in chaos, and the city gate was wide open. Seeing this, the couple wanted to go elsewhere. Unexpectedly, this chaos affected the city gate. The soldiers who came to reinforce the Qingyuan prefecture fought with the bandits. The fight was very intense. Before they could dodge, Bian Han's legs were broken by the bandits who had rushed out on their horses to escape. Gu Dafeng looked at her husband, who was in so much pain that he was about to die. She was completely at a loss. With Bian Han in such a state, she couldn't bring him away. Fortunately, the chaos in the city had slowly been eased at this time. A large number of bandits had already been captured or fled, and the order in the city was gradually recovering. Gu Dafeng carried the unconscious Bian Han into the city, wanting to find a doctor to treat his legs. However, where could they find a doctor at a time like this? There were dead people everywhere, people who were seriously injured, medical halls were all closed, and the pharmacies were robbed. They didn't even have a place to rest, let alone find a doctor. After 2 days of delay, Bian Han's legs started to swell and pus gradually, and he was about to be completely crippled because he didn't have time to treat it. Bian Han even had a high fever because of this. If he was not treated, he would not even be able to save his life. Then they met Gu Qingyuan. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 793. Be My Servants. Gu Dafeng and Gu Qingyuan didn't have a good relationship in the past. It was just that the age difference was a little big. Coupled with the fact that they were already married, they rarely met. However, no matter what their relationship was in the past, Gu Dafeng was really happy to meet her family at this time. However, Gu Qingyuan clearly did not think so. For some reason, she had become the concubine of a rich family with the surname Zhou in the prefectural city of Qingyuan Prefecture. Furthermore, she seemed to be very doted on. When she saw Gu Dafeng like that, she only felt happy. However, she was not as happy as someone who met their relatives in a foreign land. Especially when she saw Gu Dafeng's desolate appearance and Bian Han's almost hopeless legs. Gu Qingyuan originally wanted to ignore them. She turned around and left as if she didn't know them. However, she returned not long after and looked at them with a condescending expression. Gu Dafeng, are you trying to save your husband? If you beg me, I'll find a doctor to treat his legs and give him medicine, so that you can both survive. Gu Dafeng knew that Gu Qingyuan had gone overboard, but looking at her dying husband, she knelt down and begged her without a word. There was nothing else she could do but beg her. Gu Qingyuan was indeed very happy. She laughed until her entire body was trembling. She squatted down and her eyes were filled with malice. All right, I'll save him, but you'll sell yourselves and sign a contract to become my servants. How about that? Gu Dafeng was shocked. Gu Qingyuan wanted them to be servants? Of course she was unhappy, but at this point, Gu Dafeng could only accept her fate. Moreover, a day ago, she was actually thinking of selling herself to exchange for her husband's life. But now there were refugees everywhere. How many people would put a straw on their heads and sell themselves just to have a bite to eat? This kind of person who did not seem to be a burden and looked like a laborer did not have many buyers. Forget it, she was already prepared to sell herself anyway. Now her master had just changed to Gu Qingyuan. Other than feeling disgusted, there was no other difference. Gu Dafeng agreed and pressed her thumbprint on the indenture along with the unconscious Bian Han. Then, she quietly followed Gu Qingyuan back to the Zhou mansion. As expected, Gu Qingyuan found a doctor to treat Bian Han's legs. However, this doctor's medical skills were not good. Not only did she make Bian Han suffer, but his legs were also not completely cured. However, his legs were no longer swollen and pus was no longer flowing out. The high fever on his body had also subsided. No matter what, his life was saved. That was enough. Nothing else mattered. However, what followed was eldest Aunt Gus's calamity. She had become Gu Qingyuan's servant, and it was common for her to be beaten and scolded. Once Gu Qingyuan was unsatisfied with her serving tea and water. Gu Qiuyue would not give her food and she would kneel outside the courtyard to suffer the cold. Moreover, the indenture they signed back then was for 2 people. Bian Han could not work because of his leg injury. Hence, Gu Qiuyue asked Gu Dafeng to do all his work. Otherwise, she was not allowed to eat or sleep. During that period of time, Gu Dafeng was so busy that she did not have any time to rest. Because of this, Bian Han blamed himself very much. There were several times when he wanted to end his life, so that he would not drag her down, but in the end, he was saved by Gu Dafeng. If he died too, Gu Dafeng would feel that there was no point in living. At least her husband was by her side, and she had someone to rely on. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 794. They did it for nothing. This torture lasted until their Zhou mansion planned to move his entire family to the Xuanhe Prefecture. Gu Dafeng and her husband naturally came along. When they first arrived at Xuanhe Prefecture, Gu Qiuyue was still unwilling to let them off. However, not long after, Gu Qiuyue suddenly stopped. Although she was still secretly humiliating them, she was no longer so brazen. Gu Dafeng found it strange. Later, she heard that it was because old master had brought Mrs. Zhou back. Mrs. Zhou was very dissatisfied with Zhou Dafu's concubine. Furthermore, she quarreled with Zhou Dafu and left the Zhou mansion to return to her maternal family in Yongning Prefecture. Mrs. Zhou felt that Zhou Dafu was so unscrupulous because he saw that Yongning Prefecture had suffered a disaster, and felt that her maternal family had also suffered heavy losses, and could not be her backer. He actually said in front of her that he wanted to take a widow who had given birth to a child as a concubine. In a fit of anger, she went home to find someone to support her. Fortunately, although her family had suffered some losses, not everyone could bully them. After her family recovered, they sent someone to settle scores with Zhou Dafu. Only then did Zhou Dafu bring his son to Yongning Prefecture to fetch Mrs. Zhou. Gu Yundong could not help but think about it. The last time they had met Zhou Dafu and his son was on the way back from Yongning Prefecture. Could it be that they had gone to fetch Mrs. Zhou? After Mrs. Zhou returned, in order to show his respect for her family, although Zhou Dafu did not chase Gu Qiuyue away, he neglected her for a long time. During that period of time, Gu Qiuyue shrunk like a quail and did not dare to cause trouble at all. She was even called to the front by Mrs. Zhou and mocked. She often stayed in Mrs. Zhou's courtyard to serve her, and was tortured by Mrs. Zhou. Gu Dafeng and her husband finally had a chance to catch their breath and recuperate in the backyard. Even though Gu Qiuyue did not let them have an easy time after suffering at Mrs. Zhou's side. However, with Mrs. Zhou in the Zhou mansion, she did not dare to be too obvious. However, not long after, Gu Qiuyue mysteriously told them to stay in the backyard and not go anywhere. She also told them not to see anyone, and even locked up their room. Even she rarely met them. Only Mrs. Run interacted with them. Although Gu Dafeng found it strange, the two of them heaved a sigh of relief when Gu Qiuyue stopped torturing them. However, Gu Qiuyue often starved them and only gave them porridge a day to barely fill their stomachs. Gu Dafeng and her husband were locked up in the backyard like prisoners. However, the two still had hope. They still wanted to leave this place. Bian Han used to be a carpenter and knew how to carve gadgets. Gu Dafeng stayed in the backyard for a while, and got someone to bring back some wood that others did not want, as well as 2 carving knives. Mrs. Ren did see it, but she saw that Bian Han's carving was quite good looking. Anyway, as long as they did not cause trouble, it was fine to carve some things. Mrs. Ren even took Father Bian's carvings to sell. Although the price was not high, she still earned some extra income. Because of this, Mrs. Ren turned a blind eye and even helped to persuade Gu Qiuyue when she found out. That was why she didn't let Gu Qiuyue take their things away. However, what Mrs. Ren did gave Gu Dafeng some inspiration. If she could sell them, could she do the same? Although they were said to be Gu Qiyue's servants, they were different from ordinary servants. They did not have any monthly allowance. Gu Qiuyue said that she had already paid their monthly allowance for Bian Han's treatment in advance, so they had done the work for nothing. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 795. Fate is indescribably wonderful. Gu Dafeng needed money. She knew that no matter where she was, she could not do anything without money. For example, if she had money in the backyard of the Zhou mansion, she could at least find someone to bring them some food and not starve. Just like Mrs. Run. Although she was Gu Qi's confidant, she had her own interests and could still make things easier for them. Therefore, after Bian Han carved those gadgets again, Gu Dafeng would secretly hide some. The rest would be taken away by Mrs. Run. In order to earn this extra income, Mrs. Run even found wood for them. Anyway, it was just a small matter. Bian Han was her free labor. Bian Han's movements were fast and the carvings were beautiful. Gu Dafeng had actually already saved up a bag of money, but it was a pity that she could not leave the residence. Mrs. Run was very strict in this aspect. The courtyard where Gu Qingyuan lived was filled with her people, and the place where they lived was tightly guarded. Just as Gu Dafeng was feeling a little dejected, an opportunity suddenly came. The servant who watched over them today did not pay attention, and left without locking the door completely. Gu Dafeng ran out secretly. She had also heard that old Master Zhou had left the residence to watch the parade. Not only him, but Gu Qingyuan had also gone out. Mrs. Run was not around either. Moreover, the place they were going was relatively far from the Zhou mansion. It would probably be afternoon when they returned. Gu Yundong thought of Steward Zhou, whom she had met in the tea house. She had not seen Steward Zhou come out of the main door since she went back. Now that she knew that Zhou Dafu had gone out, he must have gone out through the back door. Moreover, because she was here, he was afraid that it would be awkward if they bumped into each other, so he went further away to watch the commotion. What could she say? Was fate indescribably wonderful? So, eldest aunt took advantage of their absence to sell all the wooden carvings in this bag. Gu Dafeng nodded and looked at the bag beside her. She said in a low voice, "Unfortunately, none of them were sold. When everyone saw me like this, they thought I was a beggar. Before I could speak, they all had run away." Gu Dafeng's clothes were from her hometown. Gu Qingyuan had never given them clothes to wear. She always said that they were doing rough work anyway. It would be a waste to give them good clothes. They did not have to go out, so there was nothing to worry about. Therefore, even though she had washed her clothes and tidied her hair, she was still avoided by pedestrians. The wooden carvings couldn't be sold, and someone accidentally pushed her in front of someone's carriage. At that moment, Gu Dafeng's heart was filled with despair. She had personally seen someone block a rich man's carriage and be beaten half to death. At that time, her limbs were weak, and she could not stand up at all. Her mind was also blank. She only spoke numbly, but she did not even know what she had said. When she picked up the wooden carvings and was about to leave, a man grabbed her hand. She started to tremble, thinking that it was over. Unexpectedly, she met her eldest brother and niece. They stopped her because they recognized her voice. Gu Dafeng was overjoyed. She wished she could hug her eldest brother and cry on the spot. She wanted to cry out all the emotions she had suppressed for the past year. Finally, she didn't have to hold on like this anymore. She and her brother were reunited. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 796. It'll bring uncle back. Gu Dajiang's eyes turned red when he heard that. He held his sister's hand and said, "With me around in the future, you can be at ease. I won't let you suffer like this again." Then he gritted his teeth. "Gu Qingyuan, this beast. Previously, she lied to me that Yundong and the rest went to Wanqing Prefecture. Now she's using all means to torture your own sister and brother-in-law." He looked at Gu Yundong. "I'll go to the Zhou mansion and personally bring brother-in-law out. You take care of your aunt." Gu Dafeng quickly pulled him back. "Brother, don't be rash. The Zhou family is not an ordinary family. You'll suffer if you go." Gu Yundong also stopped him. "Father, don't go. I'll go to the Zhou mansion." "You can't go either. Yundong, you don't know." Gu Dafeng wanted to stop her. Gu Yundong shook her head. "It's all right, aunt. I know old Master Zhou." Eldest Aunt Gu was stunned. "You know old Master Zhou?" "That's right. Not only do we know each other, but we also have some ties. When my shop opened, he gave me a huge gift, Gu Yundong said meaningfully. So don't worry. Even if Gu Qiuyue doesn't agree to let you go, she is Zhou Dafu's concubine. As long as Zhou Dafu agrees, it's useless for her to object. Gu Dafeng was stunned. Yundong had opened a shop? Old Master Zhou had even sent a congratulatory gift? They actually knew each other? Gu Yundong said to Gu Dajiang, Father, I've interacted more with Old Master Zhou and know his personality. It's more suitable for me to ask him for her. You haven't met Zhou Dafu before. He doesn't know you. If he's unwilling to see you, you won't be able to ask for anything. Most importantly, if Gu Qiuyue finds out, it'll be disadvantageous for us if she's on guard. Gu Dajiang frowned. Although he wanted to teach Gu Qiuyue a lesson personally, what Yundong said made sense. Hence she nodded. All right, nothing else is important. The most important thing is to bring your uncle out and get the indenture. Yes, I know. Gu Yundong smiled. Eldest aunt, rest well. I will reunite your family. Gu Dafeng was still very worried. Her niece was only 15 years old, and she used to be a timid girl who did not speak much. Zhou Dafu was a businessman. He had been in the business world for a long time and had a big estate. Such a person was an old fox. Although she had never interacted with Zhou Dafu, she knew that he was not a good person. Yundong was so beautiful, yet Zhou Dafu had taken a fancy to Gu Qiuyue. What if he had designs on Yundong? Gu Dafeng's mind was in a mess, and her imagination was running wild. However, Gu Yundong had already stood up. She looked around and said to Gu Dajiang, Father, this is a medical center after all. It's not convenient to stay here for long. Take eldest aunt to the inn beside and get a good room. Let eldest aunt rest and recuperate. Gu Dajiang thought about it and agreed. He helped Gu Dafeng stand up. On the other hand, Gu Dafeng shook her head. Isn't it a waste of money? It's the same even if I wait outside. Gu Dajiang disagreed, and insisted on bringing her to a nearby inn. Gu Yundong specially went to the ready-made clothing store and bought 2 sets of clothes. One was for eldest Aunt Gu and the other was for his uncle. Then she handed eldest Aunt Gu to her father and went out herself. She walked to the carriage and jumped up. Shui Rong, who was on the carriage shaft, asked, Miss, where are we going? The Zhou residence? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 797. Finding help. Gu Yundong was also thinking about where to go. Of course, it was most important to go straight to the Zhou residence, but Zhou Dafu, after a few interactions, Gu Yundong finally knew what kind of person this person was. He was someone who would trample on you to death whenever he found an opportunity. Back then, when he wanted her shop, he didn't know much about her and Shao Qingyuan. He only knew that he couldn't beat them and ran away. In the end, after investigating them, he found out that the 2 of them were just poor people from the countryside who had no backing. He immediately wanted to destroy them on the day of the opening. Even if such a person saw that the people who came to deliver the congratulatory gifts were either rich or noble when the shop opened, and knew that she was not someone without a backer, once he knew that the family she cared about was in the Zhou mansion, he would be smug. Not only would he not let him go, but he would also take her aunt and uncle into his hands and obtain endless benefits from her. For example, getting in touch with the Nie family. If Gu Qiuyue, the troublemaker, was included, Gu Yundong felt that she would be sucked dry by Zhou Dafu in the future. Therefore, he could not look for her so directly. Gu Yundong sat in the carriage and did not speak. His mind was racing. After a while, she narrowed her eyes and said to Shui Rong, who was outside, Go to the Dai residence. This place was not far from the government office, so the Dai residence was also nearby. Although Shui Rong did not know what Miss wanted to do, he immediately turned his horse around, shook the reins, and quickly headed for the Dai residence. Gu Yundong had never been to the Dai residence before. Previously, she had met Madame Dai at the milk tea shop. This was the first time she had visited. However, Madame Dai had told her that if she wanted to visit, she could just tell the concierge. She had instructed the concierge not to stop her. Thus, after Gu Yundong announced her identity, the concierge immediately let her inside. Madame Dai happened to be at home today. When she saw Gu Yundong enter, her face was filled with surprise. Yundong, you're finally in the prefectural city. It seems that I sent the right letter to you. I should have urged you to come back earlier. Gu Yundong smiled and greeted her. Madame Dai held her hand and walked in. All right. There's no need to be so polite. You came at the right time. I have a lot to tell you. Come in quickly. I'll get someone to serve tea. Gu Yundong quickly pulled her back. Auntie, wait. I came here today for something. Is something wrong? Yes, it's an urgent matter, Gu Yundong said solemnly. Seeing this, Madame Dai's expression turned solemn. Do you think there's a problem with the shop? No, I have something else to ask. Young Master Dai for help. Gu Yundong looked around and whispered in her ear. Wenhuo. Madame Dai was surprised. Yes, is young Master Dai in the residence? Yes. Madame Dai's heart was itching. She didn't know why Yundong was looking for Wenhuo. She knew that Wenhuo had gone to Yongfu village last time. When she returned home, she even specially asked him. Wenhuo simply said that Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan had helped him a lot. After that, she didn't say much. Madame Dai knew that there were some things that she shouldn't know too much about, so she didn't ask further. Could it be that Yundong was looking for Wenhuo today, because of what happened back then? Why didn't young Master Shao come looking for him? Madame Dai thought a lot, but she knew her limits. Her husband and son were doing something big, so she shouldn't inquire what she shouldn't know. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 798. The petty Dai Wenhuo. Hence, Madame Dai quickly asked the maidservant to look for Dai Wenhuo. What a coincidence. Wenhuo happened to be at home today. Today was the day that the bandits were going to be executed. There was indeed news that there might be accomplices coming to rescue the prisons, so Dai Wenhuo secretly deployed people to keep an eye on the few people who were to be executed. Unexpectedly, there was nothing unusual. The bandits did not come. Dai Wenhuo waited for the bandits to be beheaded before returning home. Just as he finished eating and changed his clothes, he heard his mother call him over. Dai Wenhuo quickly packed up and went to pay his respects to his mother. Then he saw Gu Yundong standing there. He was stunned for a while before Madame Dai said, "Come quickly. Yundong is looking for you. She has something important to discuss." As she spoke, Madame Dai left, leaving Dai Wenhuo and Dai Zhong behind. Dai Zhong nodded. Miss Gu. Gu Yundong nodded at him and walked to Dai Wenhuo. I want to ask you for a favor. Dai Wenhuo dug his ears. Who did you say you were asking for help? This guy. He must have hated her for not sharing the porridge with him when they were deep in the mountains. What a petty man. Please, Dai Wenhuo. Forget it. She was a magnanimous person. She would let him be smug for 2 days. Dai Wenhuo finally knew that this was a private matter. Since it was not serious, he was not in a hurry. He raised his eyebrows and asked again. I didn't hear you clearly. Say it again. Dai Zhong, who was standing behind him, shouted in his heart. Young master, where's your grace? Do you not want that brother of yours, young Master Shao? Why are you making things difficult for Miss Gu like this? Moreover, Miss Gu will definitely take revenge in the future. It won't do you any good to act rashly. Gu Yundong secretly took a deep breath and put on a fake smile. It's fine if you didn't hear me clearly. If your house wasn't close, I wouldn't have come to look for you. But it seems that I found the wrong person. After all, you're deaf. I'm afraid you can't help much. Goodbye. Her first choice was the steward of the Nie residence, alright? Zhou Dafu wanted to cozy up to the Nie residence, and it was said that he had treated the steward to several meals. However, the Nie residence was far away. Furthermore, she was not as familiar with the steward as she was with Dai Wenhuo. Unexpectedly, Dai Wenhuo was nothing. She turned around and was about to leave when Dai Wenhuo suddenly stood up from his chair. Wait. He took 2 steps forward and stood in front of Gu Yundong. Forget it. For Shao Qingyuan's sake, just tell me what it is. I'll help you. I don't want him to fight me to the death if you run to him and cry. He didn't say that he wouldn't help. This woman really didn't have any patience. He wasn't such an ungrateful person. Last time, it was her and Shao Qingyuan who brought him into the mountains and gave him such a big clue. Gu Yundong snorted coldly. She wanted to put on airs and let him know that there was a price to pay for his foul mouth. However, she couldn't wait any longer. Who knew if Gu Qingyuan would find out about her eldest aunt's absence and settle the score with her eldest uncle? Thus, Gu Yundong did not delay any further and briefly explained the matter. Wenhuo frowned when he heard that. After a while he nodded and said, "All right, let's go to the Zhou residence. Find me a set of servant's clothes. I'll go with you. Zhou Dafu knows me. I'll dress up." Wenhuo nodded and got someone to bring her a new set of clothes. Then he got Zhou to prepare the carriage. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 799. To the Zhou mansion, disguised Gu Yundong borrowed Madame Dai's room and put on makeup for himself. Madame Dai watched from the side. Although she did not know what Gu Yundong was doing dressed up like this, she saw that Gu Yundong had skillfully turned an exquisite and gentle girl into a slightly delicate but tough man in a short period of time. She exclaimed as if she was watching a show. "As expected. I knew that the more I get to know you, the more capable you are. I really want to see what other abilities you have." Madame Dai was really envious of her hands. She felt that they could turn something rotten into something magical. Gu Yundong smiled. "I'll teach Auntie when I'm free." "That's a deal." "Okay." Gu Yundong bade her farewell and hurried out. As soon as she left, Madame Dai's gaze landed on the makeup items on her dressing table. She picked them up eagerly and gestured at her face. Gu Yundong had already walked out of the Dai residence. There were 2 carriages parked there. Wenhuo stood beside one of them. Gu Yundong walked toward Shuirong. "Go back to the inn first." "Yes, miss." Gu Yundong nodded and turned to walk towards Wenhuo. Wenhuo did not recognize her at first. It was only when she was close that he widened his eyes and looked at the delicate servant. Gu Yundong had already lifted the curtain and went up. "Hurry up. We're in a hurry." Wenhuo coughed lightly and tried his best to hide the surprise on his face. She was indeed the best at drawing charcoal. He did not expect this skill to have such a magical effect on her face. Gu Yundong looked straight ahead, but she knew that Wenhuo would occasionally turn to look at her. If she knew what Wenhuo was thinking, she would probably vomit blood. How could everything be related to painting? Gu Yundong had something on her mind and was not in the mood to chat, so she was very silent along the way. In silence, the carriage arrived at the entrance of the Zhou mansion. Wenhuo's carriage had the symbol of the Dai family. The gatekeeper of the Zhou family had long been instructed by the master to remember all the famous families in the prefectural city. At this moment, when he saw the prefecture magistrate Dai's carriage, his eyes immediately widened. He hurriedly pushed another person beside him to the side. Quickly report to the master that someone from the Dai residence is here." That person staggered and did not say anything else. He immediately got up and staggered inside. Old master. Gu Yundong alighted from the carriage and turned to wait respectfully for Wenhuo to alight. Wenhuo jumped down and looked up at the Zhou residence in front of him. He said in a low voice, "This is Zhou Dafu's house?" "Yes." As he spoke, the gatekeeper had already greeted him with a flattering smile. "May I ask if the esteemed guest is young Master Dai?" "Yes, I'm looking for your master." The gatekeeper hurriedly said, "I've already sent someone to report. Young Master Dai, please wait a moment." In less than 10 seconds, Zhou Dafu had already rushed out of the door. "Young Master Dai, please forgive me for not coming out to welcome you." Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes and lowered her head. Wenhuo glanced at her without batting an eyelid and walked up. "I hope old Master Zhou won't take offense at my unannounced visit." "You're welcome. Please come in, young Master Dai." Wenhuo led Gu Yundong and Zhou inside, led by Zhou Dafu. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 800. Someone's secret help. At the same time, in the Zhou mansion's tranquil orchid courtyard, a nanny was talking to Mrs. Zhou. "According to Madame's instructions, we bribed the servants of the snow-blowing garden and opened the door for the couple. That Gu wife did indeed leave with a bag. However, she was only going to sell wooden carvings. I thought that we would not gain anything today. I didn't expect that the Gu wife would bump into a carriage on her way back. The people in the carriage came down and met her. Oh my, that's amazing. Mrs. Zhou immediately straightened her back. What happened? The nanny laughed. A man came out of the carriage and actually called the Gu wife sister. Mrs. Zhou's eyes widened. Really? Yes, I heard it clearly. The nanny did not expect such a gain. She had been keeping an eye on the garden for some time. Concubine Gu had not been with master for a long time, and did not have much power. However, Mrs. Run had taken her side, and Mrs. Run was not on good terms with Mrs. Zhou, so she had been helping Concubine Gu. Mrs. Run was a person who liked to hold grudges. In the past, she had served the old madam. Before the old madam died, she asked the old master to take care of Mrs. Run. Therefore, even if Mrs. Zhou wanted to deal with her, she had to consider carefully and tactfully. However, when master took Concubine Gu in, Mrs. Zhou went back to her mother's family in a fit of pique, giving Mrs. Run time to get together with Concubine Gu and arrange for her former friends to join the snow-blowing garden. That was why it was so difficult for her to find out what was going on in the garden, and Concubine Gu had not come out of the garden a while ago. But she had heard from a servant that Concubine Gu was locked up with a couple. She had no idea what their relationship was, but she heard that the man's legs were broken and his surname was Bian, and the woman's surname was Gu, which was the same as Concubine Gus. Mrs. Zhou and her servant both guessed that Concubine Gu might be from the same hometown, and had a grudge against her. Otherwise, why would Concubine Gu torture her so much? Mrs. Zhou saw that she had kept the two of them locked up and refused to let them out, so she would try to set the Gu woman. It was because she opened the door that Gu Dafeng was able to leave the Zhou mansion unhindered and reach the streets. The nanny followed behind her quietly and saw Gu Dajiang reuniting with her. After Mrs. Zhou heard this, she tapped her fingers on the table and frowned. Don't you know who's in the carriage? I don't know about that, the nanny said shamefully. I originally wanted to ask around, but unfortunately, that man booked a room in the inn next door. His daughter left in a carriage. The carriage moved too quickly, so I couldn't follow. He got a room in the inn. In that case, he's not from the Xuanhe Prefecture? The nanny thought for a moment and nodded slightly. I'm afraid so. Mrs. Zhou sighed. So you are saying that the brother of the Gu family doesn't dare to seek revenge from the Zhou family and Concubine Gu? The nanny was also a little disappointed. Logically speaking, they had acknowledged the Gu family, but that man with the surname Bian was still in the residence. If they were worried that he would suffer, they should have come to the Zhou mansion as soon as possible to ask for him. However, the brother of the Gu family was accompanying the Gu family at the inn. The daughter rode the carriage away and did not come to the Zhou mansion. The two of them were disappointed. At this moment, a servant came to report. Madam, the young master of the Prefecture Magistrate Dais family is here. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 801. Old Master Zhou, please give him to me. Mrs. Zhou instantly came back to her senses and temporarily put aside the matter of the Gu family. She asked in surprise. The young master of the Prefecture Magistrate Dais family? When did we have a relationship with the Dai family? The servant shook his head. I don't know. Master seems to be quite puzzled too. Mrs. Zhou thought for a moment. Go to the front yard and wait. Listen to what's going on. I hope he's not here for trouble. She said the last sentence in an extremely low voice. As she finished speaking, she began to feel uneasy. The servant hurriedly ran out. At this moment, Zhou Dafu was also feeling uneasy. After asking Dai Wenhuo to take a seat, he asked tentatively, May I know why young Master Dai is here today? There's nothing special. I just want to ask if old Master Zhou can give me 2 servants. Dai Wenhuo said with a smile. Zhou Dafu heaved a sigh of relief and asked curiously, Who is young Master Dai talking about? Dai Wenhuo took out 2 wooden carvings and said, When I went on the streets today, I saw a woman holding a wooden carving. I liked it very much and wanted to buy a few more from her. Unexpectedly, the woman said that she was a servant of the Zhou mansion. This wooden carving was carved by her husband, so she couldn't sell it to me. Zhou Dafu was surprised. There was a servant in his residence who knew how to sculpt? He did not know that. He picked up the wooden carving that Dai Wenhuo had placed on the table, and took a closer look. It was indeed quite exquisite, but there was still a gap between it and the works of those real old craftsmen. It was rare for Dai Wenhuo to like it. However, Dai Wenhuo did not seem to see the doubt in his eyes. He sighed faintly and said as if he was recalling, I really like this wooden carving. I'm not afraid of old Master Zhou laughing at me. I learned it myself when I was young, but I wasn't good at it, so I put it down. Now that I see this wooden carving, I actually think of those things when I was young. I suddenly feel a little emotional, so I want to pick it up again and learn it. I can kill time in my spare time. Coincidentally, I met this sculptor who suits me, so on impulse, I came to ask old Master Zhou to give them to me. Zhou Dafu was stunned. So that was the case. His mind began to work quickly. He had no interaction with Dai Wenhuo at all. Usually, it was harder than ascending to the heavens to climb up the Dai residence. This was a rare opportunity. Dai Wenhuo only wanted 2 servants. Not to mention the servants that he had no impression of and were worthless. He would not have any objections even if Dai Wenhuo wanted the servant beside him. Moreover, using these 2 servants to establish a relationship with Dai Wenhuo would be very beneficial to him in the future. Seeing that he was silent, Dai Wenhuo smiled and said, Of course, it's fine if old Master Zhou can't bear to part with them. I'm just saying. Zhou Dafu was shocked and hurriedly said with a smile, Young Master Dai, you must be joking. They're just 2 servants. How can I be reluctant to let them go? I'm a boor and don't understand these elegant things. This sculptor will be wasting his talent if he's with me. Only by following young Master Dai will he have a chance to be useful. I can't ask for more. Dai Wenhuo had already come personally. If he didn't give the servants to him, he would be ungrateful. Old Master Zhou is indeed a reasonable person. Dai Wenhuo took out 50 taels of silver from his sleeve, and slowly pushed it over the table. This is the silver to buy them. I hope old Master Zhou will accept it. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 802. Oh no, he's going to inform them. Zhou Dafu hurriedly waved his hand. I can't accept the money. They're just 2 servants. I'll just give them to young Master Dai. That won't do, Dai Wenhuo said meaningfully. If that's the case, I'll be criticized if word gets out. I don't want to be criticized behind my back for 2 servants. Zhou Dafu suddenly came back to his senses, and thought of the prefecture magistrate Dais' identity. Indeed, giving gifts was one thing, but it couldn't be done openly. What if someone targeted the prefecture magistrate and reported him to the emperor? Wouldn't it mean that he had done something bad out of good intentions? Not only did he not let young Master Dai owe him a favor, but he also made people hate him? At the thought of this, Zhou Dafu shuddered on the spot and said with a serious expression, Young Master Dai makes sense. We're doing a normal transaction. That's right. It's better to write it clearly in a contract. Without another word, Zhou Dafu asked the butler to bring a pen and paper over. He wrote down the contract that Bian Han and Gu Dafeng had been sold to Dai Wenhuo, signed it, and gave each of them a copy. Dai Wenhuo put away his copy in satisfaction, and a glint flashed across his slightly lowered eyes. That's right. It was a normal transaction, and the silver had been paid. In the future, don't ask me for favors just because you have given me 2 servants. I wouldn't admit it. Zhou Dafu had misunderstood, and did not realize that he had fallen into Dai Wenhuo's trap. He invited Dai Wenhuo to drink tea, then asked someone to bring the servant with the surname Bian. The servant turned around to go, but he was stopped by Steward Zhou halfway. I'll go. The person sent by Mrs. Zhou happened to see it. He immediately ran back to the tranquil orchid courtyard, and panted as he recounted the matter. When Mrs. Zhou heard that Dai Wenhuo was here to ask for the servants, she was stunned. Could it be that the brother that the Gu woman met was related to the prefecture magistrate's family? He didn't come before, because he went to ask the young master for help? Oh no, madam, Steward Zhou is on good terms with Mrs. Ren. I'm afraid he went to inform her, right? The nanny suddenly exclaimed. Mrs. Zhou could not sit still anymore. Let's go to the front yard to take a look. Nanny, bring someone to the snow-blowing garden personally to bring her out. If Mrs. Ren stops you, say that it's old master's orders. If she delays you, we'll teach her a lesson. Yes, ma'am. Bring a few more people. The nanny immediately ordered a few servants in the courtyard to leave with her. Mrs. Zhou tidied her clothes and led the two maidservants to the front courtyard. At this moment, Yundong also saw Steward Zhou, who had stopped the servants and personally went to look for the servants. A bad feeling flashed across her heart. She whispered to Wenhuo, "Oh, go to the toilet." Wenhuo knew that she must have something to do and immediately scolded. "I told you to drink less water before leaving. Come back quickly." Zhou Dafu saw that although Wenhuo was dissatisfied, he did not seem angry at all. He knew that Wenhuo definitely liked this servant. Hence he quickly said, "I'll get the servant to bring this young man over." Yundong said in a rough voice, no need. I'll just go out and ask." Then, she looked like she couldn't hold it in anymore and ran away. Zhou Dafu frowned slightly and hurriedly gave the butler a look. This was his residence. Although the other party was brought over by young Master Dai, the servant could not walk around casually. His study had many secrets. The butler hurried to catch up, but Yundong ran very fast. How could the butler catch up? Chapter 803. Oh no, the butler was a little angry that he had lost the stranger. If he told Zhou Dafu now, he would definitely make Wenhuo unhappy. Therefore, he could only make the people guarding the study and the warehouse more vigilant and strict. However, Yundong did not go to those places at all. She moved very quickly and soon caught up with Steward Zhou, who was walking towards the snow-blowing garden. Steward Zhou quickly entered the courtyard, but there were two old women guarding the entrance. Yundong was just thinking about how to put the two of them down when she heard hurried footsteps behind him. She quickly hid behind a big tree at the side and watched helplessly as four burly old women followed a nanny and quickly walked towards the snow-blowing garden. The nanny in the lead instructed the old woman behind her with a serious expression. "Keep a close eye on Mrs. Ren later. That person is the most ruffian. You must not let her go over and hide that servant with the surname Bian. Do you hear me?" "Got it." Yundong narrowed his eyes. "Mrs. Ren? Who were these people? They looked fierce, as if they were here to cause trouble." The next moment, Yundong confirmed her guess. These people were indeed here to cause trouble. As soon as they reached the entrance of the courtyard, they were stopped by the old woman guarding the door. "What are you doing? This is the snow-blowing garden. You're not allowed to be impudent." The leading nanny did not stop walking at all. She said to the old woman behind her, "Shut their mouths and drag them to the side." "Yes." Then two old women walked out and pounced on the two guards. The two of them instantly shouted, "Nanny Su, how dare you? Aren't you afraid that old master will argue with madam if he finds out?" Nanny Su sneered. "We're here on master's orders to look for someone." After saying that, she entered without looking back. The old woman guarding the door wanted to say something, but her mouth was blocked and she could not make a sound at all. Then she was dragged away. Yundong understood that the people who came later were Mrs. Zhou's people. It seemed like Mrs. Zhou knew that Qingyuan was up to no good, so she took precautions in advance. It just so happened that she had helped Yundong. Without the old woman guarding the door, Yundong could easily enter again. She followed Nanny Su inside and saw Qingyuan, whom she thought was dead, sitting in the central room. She was wearing gold and silver, and her face was rosy and her figure was curled up. Her life was not ordinary. Steward Zhou was standing in front of Qingyuan. Steward Zhou bowed slightly as if he was reporting to her. However, Qingyuan had a relaxed expression on her face. She wasn't in a hurry even when Nanny Su barged in. She just chuckled. "Steward Zhou, what are you talking about? A man with the surname Bian? I don't have such a person. You're making things difficult for me. You can't possibly make me create one for you, right? Also, Nanny Su, what do you mean by bringing so many people into my courtyard with great fanfare? I'm Master's concubine after all. You're disrespectful, and don't take Master seriously at all." This pretentious look made Yundong feel nauseous. But very quickly, She narrowed her eyes and scanned the room. Other than Gu Qiuyue and a few younger maidservants, she did not look like Mrs. Run at all. Gu Yundong's expression changed slightly. Oh no. Chapter 804. Gu Yundong makes a move, retracting her gaze from Gu Qiya's face. Gu Yundong immediately turned around and ran to the left. Her movements were a little loud, causing the few old women standing behind Nanny Su to turn around. Unfortunately, before they could take a closer look, she had already disappeared. Gu Yundong ran very fast. Eldest Aunt Gu had already told her about the layout of the entire snow-blowing garden before she came. She also knew where the room they were locked in was. Thus, Gu Yundong recalled for a moment before heading straight to her destination. As expected, when she ran to the door of the second room in the small courtyard at the back, she saw a woman about the same age as Nanny Su hurriedly opening the lock of a room with two maidservants. Then the two maidservants pushed open the door and entered. Mrs. Run stood at the door to keep watch. Gu Yundong heaved a sigh of relief. There was still time. She suddenly rushed forward. Mrs. Run felt as if there was a gust of wind behind her. Just as she was about to turn around, she was hit hard on the shoulder. Before she could see who was behind her, her eyes rolled back and she fainted on the ground. Seeing this, Gu Yundong immediately screamed, "Ah, Mrs. Run!" The two maidservants in the room who were about to carry Bian out were shocked when they heard this. They hurriedly left him behind and ran out. Then they saw the person lying on the ground. The two of them were shocked and lost for a moment. They quickly squatted down and called her, Mrs. Run, what's wrong? Wake up." Gu Yundong hid in a corner, and was wondering if she should knock out the two maidservants when Nanny Su had already arrived with her people. She probably heard Gu Yundong scream and ran over. She took the lead and walked the fastest. Steward Zhou cursed in his heart and followed them. On the other hand, Gu Qiuyue was stumbling at the back because her clothes were too cumbersome. Seeing that they were here, Gu Yundong decided to hide and observe the situation. Steward Zhou's expression changed when he saw Mrs. Run lying on the ground. He asked, "What happened?" The two maidservants were dumbfounded and replied in fear, "Mrs. Run fainted." "Why did she faint out of nowhere?" Nanny Su sneered. She probably fainted because she felt guilty after doing too many bad things and was too nervous. Then she took the lead and walked towards the room in front of her. She asked Bian, "Is your surname Bian?" Bian's mind was still in a mess. He had been a little worried since Gu Dafeng left in the morning, but he could not move his legs and could only wait. However, who knew that the person who had originally said that she would be back at noon had not been around for 4 hours? Just as Bian was feeling worried, Mrs. Ren's voice came from outside the door. Immediately after, the door was opened and two maidservants came over to carry him away. Bian felt as if his brain was about to explode. There was only one thought in his mind. The matter of Dafeng sneaking out of the mansion had been discovered. However, before he could finish this thought, the two maidservants threw away their hands and ran out. Immediately after, a large group of people barged into the house. Nanny Su was a little disgusted. After all, Gu Qiuyue was the one who used this room to lock people up. In addition, Bian was an injured person, so the smell in the room was a little unpleasant. She waved her hand and let the two old women carry Bian out. Then she walked out of the door first. However, just as she was about to leave with Bian, Gu Qiuyue stopped her with a furious look on her face. Chapter 805. She was here to hammer Concubine Gu to death. Nanny Su, what do you mean? This is my snow-blowing garden. How can a be *tch like you come and take people as you please? Gu Qiuyue was furious. When she heard Steward Zhou say that someone had come to look for the servant with the surname Bian in her courtyard, she and Mrs. Ren immediately thought of Bian. Mrs. Ren immediately wanted to secretly take him away. Who knew that she was still a step too late? What was even more hateful was that Gu Dafeng was not in the house. She must have run out to cause trouble. She had really underestimated her. Nanny Su saw the man she needed. Since he was not secretly taken away beforehand, she was not in a hurry. She laughed and looked at Steward Zhou beside her. "Steward Zhou, I didn't want to come in and take him away casually. Tell me, did old master ask you to come and bring the servant with the surname Bian out?" Our madam saw that Steward Zhou came alone, and heard that this person's legs were inconvenient, so she asked me to bring someone to help. Why, Steward Zhou, don't you appreciate it? Steward Zhou laughed dryly. Now that things had come to this, he couldn't openly side with Gu Qiuyue. He could only nod and say, "That's indeed the case. This matter was indeed ordered by Old Master." Gu Qiuyue glared at him. "You," Steward Zhou gave her a look, indicating that there was no room for negotiation. Gu Yundong watched from afar. Why did she feel that the two of them had a tacit understanding? Nanny Su laughed. "Since Steward Zhou has confirmed it, Concubine Gu, please don't block the way. The master is still waiting for you. If you neglect your esteemed guest, your position as a concubine will come to an end." Gu Qiuyue gritted her teeth, and could only let Nanny Su leave. However, before she left, she looked at Bian with a warning gaze. Bian did not notice it at all. He was confused and could only vaguely hear that Old Master wanted to see him. Nanny Su left with her people, her head held high. Sigh, without Mrs. Ren's pestering, she felt refreshed. Things went especially smoothly. She did not know how Mrs. Ren fainted, but it was really at the right time. Gu Yundong smiled. She knew that Gu Qiuyue could no longer stop them, so she quietly returned to the front hall. After she stood behind Dai Wenhuo again, Dai Wenhuo glanced at her. Gu Yundong pursed her lips and smiled slightly. Gu Yundong noticed a woman sitting beside him. Judging from her attire, she should be Mrs. Zhou. However, Zhou Dafu didn't look too good. He was obviously very unhappy that Mrs. Zhou had come. That was true. There were no females for her to entertain. If she ran to the male guests so casually, Zhou Dafu felt that it would leave a bad impression on young Master Dai, who would feel that the merchant family was indeed unruly. But Mrs. Zhou was here to deal a blow to Concubine Gu, and she had to come. Hence she pretended not to see Zhou Dafu's warning gaze. Anyway, he wouldn't scold her away in front of Dai Wenhuo, so she just lowered her head and waited quietly. After a while, there was a commotion outside. Zhou Dafu said to Dai Wenhuo, "He must have been brought here." As soon as he finished speaking, Steward Zhou entered and reported, "Master, Bian has been carried over." Zhou Dafu was stunned. Carried over? Before he could figure it out, Nanny Su and the others walked in valiantly. However, at this moment, an even faster figure flew past the crowd and pounced into Zhou Dafu's arms. She cried loudly, "Master, you have to stand up for me." Chapter 806. Young Master Dai can just take him away. Gu Yundong smirked. Mrs. Zhou also smiled. Dai Wenhuo also hooked his lips. Only Zhou Dafu's face was ashen. He pushed the person out and shouted angrily, "What are you doing? There are esteemed guests here. Who asked you to be so unruly?" Gu Qiuyue was stunned. She felt extremely wronged, but she could still see clearly that there were many people standing in the hall. Mrs. Zhou was also there. At this moment, she was looking at her in a good mood. However, the disdain in her eyes was obvious, as if she was saying that a village woman was a village woman. Vulgar and stupid. Gu Qiuyue felt extremely nauseous. Without Mrs. Ren by her side, she was at a loss and forgot that Steward Zhou had mentioned that there were guests at home. The man sitting on the other side should be the esteemed guest that Zhou Dafu mentioned, right? Gu Qiuyue didn't dare to look at him at all. This person had a strong aura. He just sat there calmly and seemed to be even more terrifying than Zhou Dafu, who was standing. Gu Qiuyue didn't dare to be presumptuous anymore. After apologizing, she stood at the side. Zhou Dafu glared at her before taking a deep breath and looking at Bian. The next moment he frowned fiercely and took 2 steps forward. "What's wrong with your legs?" Bian was placed on the ground. After being tortured like this, his legs vaguely hurt, but he gritted his teeth and endured it. "Master, my legs are broken." Gu Yundong could tell and frowned slightly. However, Dai Wenhuo said, "Since his legs are injured, why isn't there a stretcher to carry him? This is too much." Zhou Dafu hurriedly nodded. "I was inconsiderate. Steward Zhou, why aren't you finding a stretcher?" "Yes, my lord." Even Steward Zhou had left. Gu Qiuyue was instantly isolated and helpless. She started to panic. Zhou Dafu glanced at Bian and frowned. Which courtyard did this Bian come from? Why was he so sloppy? He didn't even have any good clothes. Although he was wearing clean clothes, They were too tattered. Coupled with his crippled legs, he looked like a beggar on the street. No, even a beggar was better than him. Could this young Master Dai have misunderstood that their servants were not living well? No, after young Master Dai left, he had to figure out who was in charge of this Bian guy. He was actually in charge of him to this extent. He was simply neglecting his duty and embarrassing him. Zhou Dafu secretly took a deep breath and turned to Dai Wenhuo with a smile. He's here. Young Master Dai, see if it's him. If it's him, I'll get someone to change his clothes. Young Master Dai, you can just take him away. Gu Qi's expression changed. Take him away? Let this young master take Bian Han away? How could he do that? No way. Initially, she thought that Mrs. Zhou had only complained to old master and treated Gu Dafeng and her husband as tools to deal with her. It turned out that she did not. Instead, she had given them to young Master Dai. Dai Wenhuo had already learned from Gu Yundong that this person was the person they were looking for. He immediately said to Zhou Dafu, "It's him. There's no need to change his clothes. Anyway, I'll distribute new clothes to him when I bring him back to the residence. Old Master Zhou, please give me the indenture." Of course, of course. Zhou Dafu nodded. He turned to look for Steward Zhou and realized that he had sent him to find a stretcher. Hence, she could only look at Nanny Su, who had brought the man in. Chapter 807. He's a servant of Concubine Gus Courtyard. Zhou Dafu thought that since he was brought in by Nanny Su, this servant must be from Madame's courtyard. He was immediately a little dissatisfied. He glared at Nanny Su and said, "Aren't you going to bring the indenture over?" Nanny Su darted a look at Gu Qiuyue and answered respectfully and confidently, "Master, this woman belongs to Concubine Gus' yard, and you have to ask Concubine Gu for the indenture. I can't just barge into Concubine Gus' yard, lest I break the rules." Zhou Dafu was stunned and turned to look at Gu Qiuyue. "Your courtyard." Gu Qiuyue bit her lips, feeling a little indignant. However, she still nodded slightly. Zhou Dafu frowned even more. Gu Qiuyue had always given him the impression that she was gentle and kind. Although she would occasionally behave inappropriately, she had lived in the countryside in the past and had never learned the rules. He was still tolerant. But now, this beggar-like servant in front of them was actually from her courtyard? How was this possible? He felt a little awkward, but with Dai Wenhuo around, he could only suppress these emotions. He said to Gu Qiuyue in a low voice, "Since he's a servant in your courtyard, why don't you take out the indenture?" Mrs. Zhou also smiled and said, "That's right, Sister Gu, quickly take out the indenture. Old Master has already discussed it with young Master Dai. Now that this servant has been sold to young Master Dai, you don't want old Master to go back on his word, right?" As expected, Zhou Dafu's expression instantly darkened. "Aren't you going?" Gu Qiuyue could only leave the front hall unwillingly. She ran back to call Mrs. Run, but the other party still did not wake up. She could only return to the front hall with the indenture. At this moment, Steward Zhou had already ordered someone to bring a stretcher over. Gu Yundong and Dai Zhong personally helped Bian Han onto the stretcher. They only let go when he was comfortable. After that, they were just waiting for Gu Qi's indenture. Seeing that she was slow, Zhou Dafu became even more displeased. "You're so slow. You're not up to standard." Mrs. Zhou immediately covered her mouth and laughed silently. Gu Qi's face turned red and her fingers trembled slightly. She suddenly raised her head and didn't hand over the indenture in her hand. She only said to Zhou Dafu, "Master, these are my people after all. Why didn't you ask me when you sold them to others?" Zhou Dafu's expression changed drastically. He was actually questioned by a concubine in front of Dai Wenhuo. Mrs. Zhou even covered her mouth with a handkerchief and laughed silently. Now, old Master would know how embarrassing it was for him to take in a countrywoman who did not know the rules, right? He deserved it. Zhou Dafu cared about his reputation. How could he tolerate Gu Qi's provocation? "Even if I sell you, I don't need to ask you." Gu Qiuyue gasped and her body swayed. What was the meaning of this? She was about to lose her balance, and the indenture in her hand was snatched by Zhou Dafu. Mrs. Ren, who had finally been woken up by various methods, rushed in. "Master, I have something to say." Zhou Dafu was very irritable. He had sold 2 servants, but all of them dared to come out and provoke him. who was the master of this house. However, Mrs. Run was someone by his deceased mother's side. His mother valued Mrs. Run very much. Before she died, she even instructed him not to disappoint her. For the sake of the old madam, Zhou Dafu said with a dark expression, "Speak." Chapter 808. Uncle, in Yundong. Mrs. Run glanced at Bian Han and said, "Actually, this Bian Han and his wife are different from ordinary servants." She specially mentioned Gu Dafeng and gave Bian Han a subtle warning. She continued, "They had sold themselves. Bian Han's legs were badly injured and he had no money to treat them. Concubine Gu happened to run into him, so she was kind enough to give them money to treat his legs. Unfortunately, Bian Han's legs were so badly injured that even the doctor could not do anything about it. Although his legs could not be treated, the Bian couple still thanked Aunt. Besides, they were penniless and had nowhere to go, so they wanted to sell themselves to repay Aunt." Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. "Not bad. You're quite good at making up stories." The more Mrs. Run spoke, the more convinced she became. "I am a kind-hearted woman, so I agreed. But Concubine Gu also said that she would not sell them out. If someone wants to sell them out one day, she has to agree first." Gu Qingyuan heaved a sigh of relief. Indeed, with Mrs. Run by her side, she had nothing to be afraid of. Hence, she immediately nodded in agreement, and tears welled up in her eyes. "That's right. Does Master want me to be the person who goes back on his word?" This, Zhou Dafu instantly frowned. He looked at Wenhuo, who said with a smile, "Actually, Mr. Zhou, you don't have to be so embarrassed. Since Concubine Gu said so, you can ask Bian Han directly. If he is willing, I can take him away." Zhou Dafu looked at Bian Han. "What do you think?" Mrs. Run said. "Bian Han, you have to think about it clearly. I think you still have to discuss this with your wife. Otherwise, this couple will be separated." Bian Han could tell and his face turned pale. Gu Yundong could tell that she was threatening Bian Han with his wife. Unfortunately, Mrs. Run and Gu Qingyuan did not know that Wenhuo wanted to buy two people this time. Previously, when Steward Zhou went to inform Gu Qingyuan, because time was tight, he did not have time to explain the cause and effect. He probably only said that someone wanted to buy Bian Han, and did not even have time to explain the reason before going in. Later on, in the front hall, they talked about indentures a few times, but they didn't mention that there were two. Hence, Gu Qingyuan and Mrs. Run thought that Wenhuo only liked Bian Han, and wanted to take him away. Even Bian Han himself thought so. Hence, Mrs. Ren's threat was very effective. Bian Han would not leave eldest Aunt Gu here alone to be tortured by Gu Qingyuan. He was about to answer when Gu Yundong suddenly tugged at his sleeve. Gu Yundong was squatting in front of the stretcher in front of him. His back was facing Zhou Dafu and the others, and there was still some distance between them. Hence, she lowered her voice and said softly, "Uncle Im Yundong. Shoo, don't look at me first." Bian Han was stunned. "Yundong?" He subconsciously followed Yundong's instructions. Then Gu Yundong's voice rang in his ears again. "Don't worry. I've already met eldest aunt. She's with my father now. Just say that you want to leave with young Master Dai." A hint of joy flashed across Bian Han's eyes. He could finally put down his worries and fears. It turned out that Dafeng was fine and had even met her brother? That was good. That was good. Bian Han felt relieved. When he looked at Zhou Dafu again, he was no longer afraid. He spoke slowly, but he was exceptionally firm. "I'm willing to go with this young Master Dai." Chapter 809. He wants two servants, what? The smugness on Gu Qingyuan and Mrs. Ren's faces disappeared. They looked at Bian Han in disbelief. Gu Qingyuan almost blurted out, and asked him if he didn't plan to care about Gu Dafeng anymore. Fortunately, Mrs. Run was quick to stop her. Zhou Dafu heaved a sigh of relief. Thankfully, he didn't break his promise in front of Wenhuo. He asked Gu Qingyuan for the indenture. The latter was still in a daze. It was Mrs. Run who took the indenture from her, and handed it to Zhou Dafu. However, Zhou Dafu frowned as he looked at the indenture in his hand. "Why is there only one?" Gu Qingyuan came back to her senses. This is Bian Han's. It's a slave contract." "What about his wife?" A bad feeling flashed across Mrs. Ren's eyes. She asked uncertainly, "Master, do you mean that you want the indenture of the Gu woman?" Mrs. Zhou watched the drama and finally smiled. Sister Gu, I'm afraid you don't know that the people young Master Dai wanted from the beginning were this Bian couple. Gu Qi's face turned pale. How can it be? Mrs. Zhou continued. Young Master Dai has a good taste. He accidentally saw this wooden carving and knew that it was carved by Bian Han in our residence. Look, he was chatting happily with Old Master. Old Master sold the two of them to young Master Dai. At this moment, Mrs. Ren's face turned pale. Wooden carving, wooden carving? Could it be those wooden carvings that she secretly took out? Damn it, she shouldn't have been greedy. Zhou Dafu had completely lost his patience. Mrs. Ren, go back and bring the other indenture over. Seriously, you're so dilly-dallying. You're not straightforward at all. Mrs. Ren answered in a daze and quickly went out. It was not until she reached the snow-blowing garden that she slowly let out a breath. Forget it. These two were servants at the Dai mansion. They were still slaves, but Concubine Gu could not vent her anger. However, Madame had been keeping a close eye on them recently. The two of them had only been locked up in the backyard for nothing. Actually, what Mrs. Ren meant was that it was good to sell them as soon as possible, lest Madame found out about their relationship with Aunt one day and used them as tools to attack. Mrs. Ren thought that Concubine Gu should not have brought these two people into the mansion to vent her anger, so she decided to sell them now. At the thought of this, Mrs. Ren sped up and hurried to the front hall with the indentures. Zhou Dafu handed both indentures to Dai Wenhuo. Dai Wenhuo had been here for a long time. Now that he was done, he bade farewell to Zhou Dafu. Zhou Dafu wanted to keep him for dinner, but Dai Wenhuo refused. Zhou Dafu could only walk him out regretfully while Gu Yundong and Dai Zhong carried Bian Han into the carriage. Bian Han, when you go to the Dai residence in the future, serve young Master Dai well. Be careful and don't lose him. Before Zhou Dafu could finish speaking, Gu Yundong pulled down the curtain and blocked his view. Zhou Dafu rubbed his nose. All right, maybe the man didn't like people who had already been sold being educated by their old masters. He cupped his hands at Dai Wenhuo and watched as the carriage turned away. However, just as he was about to leave, the curtain beside the carriage was lifted, revealing Bian Han's thin face. He looked straight at the person standing behind Zhou Dafu and said calmly, Gu Qingyuan. Chapter 810. Bian Han is her brother-in-law? Ha! Wait, Gu Qingyuan? Zhou Dafu and the others looked at Gu Qingyuan. Even if this Bian guy was bought by someone else, he was still a servant. How dare he call Gu Qingyuan by her name? Gu Qingyuan raised her eyebrows and heard Bian Han continue. I know that the doctor who treated my legs previously was instructed by you to deliberately not heal my legs. You wanted to see us suffer. But you're my sister-in-law after all, my wife's biological sister. Furthermore, you cured my fever and let me live. We're still grateful to you. After this farewell, your sisterhood with Dafeng will be severed. From now on, we'll go our separate ways. It's good to be strangers when we meet again. Even if we're on the verge of death and lose our limbs, we definitely won't ask you to save us again. After all, I don't want to see Dafeng tortured by you until she begs for death several times. Let's not meet again. With that, he lowered the curtain and the carriage slowly walked forward, leaving the people of the Zhou mansion standing at the door as if they had been struck by lightning. Their bodies were stiff, and they could not come back to their senses. Gu Qingyuan was probably the only one who was trembling slightly and screaming in her heart that it was over. Zhou Dafu slowly turned around and looked at her with an unfamiliar gaze. After a long time, he asked with a dry throat. The man called you sister-in-law? He's your brother-in-law? The Gu woman is your sister? Yes, the Gu family. Your surname is Gu. Zhou Dafu suddenly stepped forward and grabbed her wrist. Is what he said true? Are they your sister and brother-in-law? Not only did you get someone to deliberately not treat his legs, but you also made them become your servants and tortured them in all kinds of ways. Is that right? Gu Qingyuan couldn't say a word, but Mrs. Zhou was overjoyed. Ha 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 ha. The heavens really opened their eyes. A person who could even treat her sister and brother-in-law so ruthlessly deserved retribution. The voices behind them became noisy, but Gu Yundong, who was in the carriage, smiled slightly. Bian Han exhaled slowly and asked her, was I right just now? Gu Yundong raised his brows. That's right, but uncle, was it really Gu Qiuyue who deliberately did not treat your legs back then? Bian looked at his useless legs and smiled bitterly. He nodded. At first, I didn't know either. I thought that my leg injury was really too serious and couldn't be treated. Later on, I accidentally heard that this was Gu Qiuye's order. Gu Yundong also looked at his leg. Uncle, you don't have to worry. Let's find another doctor to take a look. If it can be treated, well, treat it. If it can't be treated, we can buy you a wheelchair for you to go out. You have skills. Those wooden carvings are very beautiful. Life is not a problem at all. Bian couldn't help but laugh when he heard that. Yundong, you don't have to comfort me. It's been more than a year since my legs became like this. Those bad thoughts have long passed. I won't take things too hard anymore. The most difficult days are over. There's nothing to be afraid of now. Wenhuo nodded. Well said. Bian quickly turned around when he heard the voice. Thank you for your help today, young Master Dai. I just don't know. He was a little curious about the relationship between Yundong and this young Master Dai. Wenhuo could tell at a glance. He immediately waved his hand and said in disdain, I'm friends with her fiancé. I helped her on account of him. Gu Yundong did not deny it. She did not tell Bian Wenhuo's identity to prevent him from feeling uncomfortable. The carriage arrived at the entrance of the inn not long after. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 811. Husband and Wife Reunion. Shuirong had been waiting at the door. When he saw their carriage stop, he hurriedly ran forward. Wenhuo instructed Daizhong and Shuirong to carry Bian down. Then he said to Gu Yundong, since the matter is settled, I'll go back first. Tell Shao Qingyuan that I'll look for him another day. Gu Yundong nodded. Thank you for today. Goodbye. With that, she led the way into the inn. Gu Dajiang and his sister had been waiting anxiously. After such a long time, no one had returned. They were afraid that Gu Yundong would be troubled by the Zhou family and could not bring Bian out. It was only when they heard footsteps outside the door that the two of them looked at each other and hurriedly opened the door. Gu Dafeng immediately saw Bian being carried and her eyes turned red. She quickly walked over. Father, you're back. Yundong brought you back. Yes, I'm back. I'm back. Bian was also so excited that his hands were trembling. Only at this moment, when he saw his wife who was also safe and sound, and Gu Dajiang, who was standing there with slightly red eyes and a smile, did he believe that all of this was not a dream. He was so excited that he was incoherent. It's all thanks to Yundong. I am fine. We're all fine. Gu Dajiang hurriedly moved aside. Come in first. It's not a place to talk outside. Yes. Come in first. Gu Dafeng wiped her face and helped the person on the stretcher in. After entering the door, she exclaimed in surprise, Where's Yundong? Gu Yundong, who had been standing at the side and felt that she had a strong presence, was speechless. On the other hand, Gu Dajiang recognized her at a glance. He smiled and pushed her. Why are you dressed like this? Gu Dafeng was surprised. Yun. Gu Yundong spoke and his voice instantly became familiar. For the sake of the situation, Gu Qiuyue and Zhou Dafu didn't realize that I had also entered the Zhou mansion. We'll talk about it slowly after this matter. Let's put uncle down first. After placing her on the bed, Daizhong took his leave. Gu Yundong gave Shuirong some instructions before he left. Only 4 people were left in the room. Gu Dafeng was still emotionally unstable. She grabbed Bian's hand and cried tears of joy. Father Bian patted her. It's all right. Aren't we already out? We won't go in again. Yes, eldest aunt, it's all in the past. As Gu Yundong spoke, she took out 2 pieces of paper. This is the indenture of the 2 of you. Tomorrow, we will go to the government office to eliminate this slave status. You will still be the same as before. Gu Yundong looked at the 2 of them and felt a little sad. In her impression, eldest Aunt Gu used to be a straightforward person. She was the eldest sister and had Gu Dajiang under her. Although she was only 3 years older than Gu Dajiang, she had already taken on the responsibility of taking care of and protecting her younger brother. But now Not only was she extremely haggard, but her personality had also become trembling. From escaping to being separated from her children, to her husband's crippled legs, and finally being tortured and humiliated by Gu Qiuyue. Reality forced her to change time and time again in order to survive. She had no choice but to be careful. Gu Dajiang couldn't help but tug at his fingers. The atmosphere became a little heavy. Fortunately, Shui Rong returned very quickly and brought back the doctor from the clinic next door. Gu Dafeng was stunned when she saw the doctor and looked at Gu Yundong. The latter nodded. The most important thing now is to treat uncle's legs. Let's see how badly injured he is. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 8:12. There are always many ways. Gu Dafeng stepped back and looked at the old doctor expectantly. The old doctor had already asked Shui Rong about the situation before he came. He knew that the patient in front of him had been delayed for a year, so he could not help but be more cautious. He squatted down and carefully touched Bian Han's legs. Then he checked his pulse and finally lifted his pants to take a look. After a while, under everyone's nervous gazes, he shook his head slightly. I'm not good at medicine. I can't do anything about this patient's legs. Seeing that everyone's eyes instantly dimmed, the old doctor quickly said, however, it's not completely impossible to cure him. If you're capable, you can bring him to other medical centers. Gu Yundong thought of the old doctor's clinic. It was indeed not big, and there were only 2 doctors in charge. It was still much worse than Huimin Medical Center. Thus, after Shui Rong sent the old doctor away, Gu Yundong comforted the 2 of them. I know Dr. He from Huimin Medical Center. His medical skills are very good, and his medical ethics are also very good. Although he seemed to be good at brain acupuncture, he could introduce them to reliable specialists. But the Huimin Medical Center is a little far from here. I'm afraid it's too late to go there now. Let's go back and rest for a day. After we recover, we'll go to the medical center tomorrow to see the doctor there. That's right. Gu Dajiang nodded. We've only seen 1 doctor. If 1 doesn't work, we'll see 2. If 2 don't work, we'll see 3. If you can't be treated in Xuanhe Prefecture, there's still the capital. Gu Dafeng was finally amused by the father and daughter's anxious comfort. All right, capital? That's far from us. You make it sound like you can go there casually. Gu Dafeng used to come from a village. At most, she had been to the county city. She had only gone to the prefectural city after fleeing the wilderness. She had come all the way to the Xuanhe Prefecture. However, her thoughts were still the same as before. In the countryside, when she was seriously ill, she would at most go to the county city to look for a doctor. If others said that she could not be treated, she would most likely go back and wait to die. Gu Dafeng would not be satisfied, but at most, she would go to the prefectural city to treat his husband's illness. She had never thought of going to a place as far away as the capital. That was simply impossible for them. At most, she would do more work in the future, and take good care of her husband. However, Gu Dajiang was different. He was currently studying at Tianhai Academy. Ignoring everything else, the students he knew came from many places. There was no lack of rich children from the capital who came to study. Moreover, it was not as if he did not know anyone in the capital. Last time he helped Commander Zhou catch the bandits. Commander Zhou had gone to the capital. He would thicken his skin and beg him later. The man was a friendly person and would definitely help find a doctor. Most importantly, his Yundong was capable enough to know the imperial physician, Song Dejiang. Look, there were still many ways. Anyway, you don't have to worry too much. There will be a way. Our Lu Nyang will go to the capital to treat her illness later. The doctor said that she lacks an herb now. As long as we find it, Lu Nyang's brain disease will be cured. Hearing him mention Madame Yang, Gu Dafeng was slightly stunned. Previously, she had been thinking about Bian Han, and couldn't calm down to chat with Gu Dajiang. Hence, she didn't know what was going on with the Gu family. Now that he mentioned it, she could not help but ask, is Lu Nyang at home? What about Yunshu and Yunka? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 813. Yuanzhi is still alive. Gu Dajiang sat down and didn't hide it from her. It's all thanks to Yundong that Lu Nyang is at home. Actually, I only found them a few months ago. To be honest, I was already prepared for the worst. I didn't expect Yundong to protect her mother and younger siblings. Only then did our family reunite. Gu Dafeng was very happy to hear that. That's good, that's good. You're all safe and sound. That's better than anything. Bian also nodded repeatedly, but his children. He gently tugged at his hand, and secretly took a few deep breaths. Finally he raised his head and asked with difficulty, Dajiang, do you know anything about Mulan and her brother? Gu Dafeng also looked at him instantly. She had wanted to ask him for a long time, but she was afraid. Gu Dajiang fell silent, and Gu Yundong turned her head away slightly. Seeing this, Gu Dafeng and her husband understood everything. Their eyes immediately turned red and swollen as tears streamed down their faces. They shouldn't have asked. Indeed, they shouldn't have asked. Gu Yundong could not bear it. Aunt. It's all right, I know. Gu Dafeng waved her hand. We've already made preparations. There's nothing to eat and very little water for such a long journey. As she spoke, she choked up. There are robbers and murderers everywhere on the road. It wasn't easy for us to reach Qingyuan Prefecture, but we still encountered trouble. Their chances of survival were not high. We all know that. Gu Yundong slowly squatted down and handed her a handkerchief. She said in a low voice, Aunt Cousin Mulan is indeed gone. As soon as she confirmed this, Gu Dafeng cried out. She could not take it anymore and started crying. Gu Yundong let her vent her frustration, and gently patted her back. After a long time, her crying gradually turned into sobs. She clearly wanted to try her best to control them, but it was especially difficult. Gu Dajiang looked at Gu Yundong in disagreement, but the latter insisted that she should tell her aunt about cousin Mulan first. Letting her cry was better than anything else. Bian's pain was much more restrained. Although he was also crying, his voice was still suppressed. He reached out and patted the back of Gu Dafeng's hand. Stop crying. Let's not cry anymore. Ah. I feel terrible. I feel terrible. Children died before their parents. Her 2 children were still so young. How could they be gone? How could they be gone? But Aunt, Yuanzhi is still alive. What did you say? Gu Dafeng raised her head abruptly. She felt like she was hallucinating. Bian also looked at Gu Yundong in surprise. Gu Yundong said, Yuanzhi is still here. He was brought back to Yongning Prefecture by the Ding family. I brought him here. He's in the Prefectural city now. We'll be able to see him when we go back later. Oh really? Are you serious? Gu Dafeng grabbed Gu Yundong's shoulder. The anticipation in her eyes made her exert force. Gu Yundong did not feel any pain. She just smiled and nodded. It's true. He's in the Prefectural city. He's alive. Yuanzhi is still alive. He is still alive. There were still tears in Gu Dafeng's eyes as she looked at Father Bian, who was trembling with excitement. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Her mood fluctuated. A moment ago, she felt that the sky was about to collapse. Now, she was told that Yuanzhi was still around. In the end, the couple hugged each other and cried. It was almost dark when Gu Yundong brought the 2 of them into the carriage and went home. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 814. Family Reunion. Yes, home. After being separated for more than a year, they could finally go home. The carriage rumbled all the way to the small courtyard. Gu Dafeng and Bian, who were in the carriage, were much calmer. However, at this moment, they still clasped their hands tightly, nervous and expectant. It was not until the carriage stopped at the door that the waiter entered that they looked at each other and alighted from the carriage. Shuirong wanted to carry Bian, but he was stopped by Gu Dajiang. He bent his back and carried Bian down from the carriage. Gu Dafeng stood at the entrance. She clenched her fists and secretly took a deep breath. The door was opened from the inside. Lu Xing quickly helped remove the threshold and let the carriage in. The people in the house heard the commotion, and there was a series of banging sounds. Immediately after, someone ran out quickly. As he ran, he shouted, Father, eldest sister, you actually went out early in the morning. You didn't wait for us to wake up. You're too bad. Eldest uncle, cousin, we got to know many people today. There are really students nearby. They even said that Tianhai Academy is very beautiful. Can we go tomorrow? Gu Yong's legs were short, and she ran slowly. She shouted as she struggled to rush out. Slow down. Wait for me, or I'll be angry. The few of them rushed out. Yunshu immediately ran in front of Gu Yundong, and did not have time to see the others clearly. Bian Yuanzhi, on the other hand, was a step too late and shifted his gaze to the side. Then he was stunned. He looked at the familiar figure, who always appeared in his dreams standing beside Gu Yundong. He looked at the man who was lying beside Gu Dajiang, and looking at him eagerly. His expression became dazed. Gu Dafeng and Bian Han had already washed up before they came back. Although they looked thinner and haggard as their son, how could Bian Yuanzhi not know them? He staggered and was almost knocked down by Yunka, who rushed out from behind. The young lady quickly stopped in her tracks. Cousin Yuanzhi, although I told you to slow down, you don't have to stop. However, Bian Yuanzhi didn't seem to hear him. He just stared ahead with tears in his eyes. The little girl turned around and saw large drops of tears falling from his eyes. She was shocked on the spot. Eldest sister, cousin, he cried because of me. Gu Yundong did not know whether to laugh or cry, but because of this sentence, Gu Dafeng rushed forward and hugged Bian Yuanzhi. Yuanzhi, I finally see you. Bian Yuanzi's hands were trembling, and he did not dare to touch her. He heard Gu Dafeng's hoarse sobbing. He looked up at Gu Yundong in confusion, as if he wanted to ask her if it was true. Gu Yundong stepped forward and patted the confused Gu Yong's head. She whispered to Bian Yuanzhi, "You're not dreaming. Your parents have been found and they're back." Bian Yuanzi's tears fell even harder. He reached out his hands and hugged Gu Dafeng's neck. Finally, he raised his head and cried, "Father, mother, where did you go? Where did you go? I thought I would never see you again in my life. I was so afraid. I was so afraid that you would leave me behind." Gu Dafeng hugged his small body and swayed slightly. "Don't be afraid. I'm here. I'm here. I won't let go of your hand again. Don't be afraid." Bian Yuanzhi cried even harder. Bian Han lay on Gu Dajiang's body and really wanted to go over and hug the mother and son. However, he had no choice but to wipe his tears and laugh. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 8:15. Yuanzhi needs father and mother. When the mother and son were done crying, Gu Dafeng finally stood up with Bian Yuanzhi in her arms. She was too thin and weak. When she got up, she felt a little dizzy. Gu Yundong quickly reached out to support her and said, "Let's go in first." "Okay, let's go in first." The few of them entered the central room and sat down. Gu Yunka opened her round eyes and looked curiously at eldest Aunt Gu. She was also extremely sad from Bian Yuanzi's crying just now. After crying for a while, her eyes were still sparkling. Gu Yunshu had some impression of his eldest aunt and uncle, so he obediently went over to greet them. Seeing this, Gu Yunka obediently greeted them under eldest sister's introduction. Gu Dafeng looked at the well-behaved children and felt her heart heat up. She said "I" a few times. Bian Yuanzhi was still in her arms. He had cried too hard just now and had yet to recover. Coupled with the fact that he had just met his parents after a long time, he only wanted to be an insensible child who refused to let go of his parents. It wasn't until a pair of hands appeared on his head that he slowly raised his head and looked at Bian Han. "Father." Gu Dajiang placed Bian Han on the chair beside him. He looked at his son, who had grown much taller than a year ago, and felt especially grateful. Bian Yuanzhi slowly calmed down. However, when his gaze shifted to Bian Han's legs, he suddenly stopped. "Father, your legs." "I'm fine. I just suffered a small injury." Bian Han didn't want him to worry too much, so he casually said. Then he changed the topic. "Yuanzhi has already grown up. Father almost couldn't recognize him." "I haven't grown up yet. Yuanzhi still needs parents." Gu Dafeng almost cried again. She felt extremely guilty and self-reproachful. It was the same for Bian Han. If he had dodged in time, his legs wouldn't have been injured, and he wouldn't have had to ask Gu Qiuyue for help because of his fever. He wouldn't have been trapped in the Zhou mansion. Otherwise, he would have brought his wife back to Yongning Prefecture and reunited with his son. He was disappointing. Alright, stop crying. Look at all of you. Your eyes are swollen tomorrow. Hurry up and wipe your faces. Let's eat first. Gu Dajiang interrupted the sad atmosphere and asked Auntie Niu to serve the food. The Gu family had always made a lot of dinner. Auntie Niu's status in the previous master's family was not high, so she did not have the chance to show off her culinary skills. After arriving at the Gu family, she could finally show off her skills. Especially since Miss did not hide anything and told her the cooking methods of several dishes. Auntie Niu was the happiest in the kitchen every day, especially since the master's family had returned yesterday. Unfortunately, they came back late and she did not have time to prepare many dishes. Coincidentally, she would make more today. Hence, with the addition of Gu Dafeng and her husband, the food on the table was still more than enough. The family had just walked to the reception hall and sat down when they heard the news that Shao Qingyuan was back. Gu Dafeng didn't know about Shao Qingyuan. She just looked up and saw a tall figure step into the door. Gu Yundong stood up to welcome him. I thought you wouldn't come over because of the pharmacy's business today. Come over for dinner. I still have to go over later. After Shao Qingyuan finished speaking, he saw two unfamiliar figures. Gu Yundong quickly introduced them to each other. Upon hearing that it was eldest Aunt Gu and her husband, Shao Qingyuan revealed a rare look of surprise. You finally found them? Yes, I'll tell you about this later. Shao Qingyuan nodded and quickly went forward to greet the two elders. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 8:16. Please feed them. Gu Dafeng looked at the young man in front of her and was still in a daze. Yundong was engaged? On the other hand, Bian had already learned from Wenhuo that Gu Yundong had a fiancé. When he saw Shao Qingyuan, he sized him up. This man was indeed a handsome and elegant man. Moreover, he seemed to think highly of Gu Yundong. The two of them didn't know where Shao Qingyuan was from, or what was going on at home. However, now wasn't the time to ask. After everyone got to know each other, they sat down to eat. Eldest Aunt Gu ate a bowl of porridge at noon. Bian also ate half a bowl after being brought to the inn. At this moment, she was a little hungry. However, when she was in the Zhou family, hunger had become a common occurrence. She was already used to it. Looking at the table full of dishes, the two of them were a little stunned. Not to mention the hunger in the Zhou mansion. Even before they fled, they had never eaten such a sumptuous dinner. Her eldest brother's current life was already so good. Gu Dajiang moved his chopsticks first. Don't just stand there. Let's eat. We'll talk after we're done. Gu Yundong asked Aunt Niu to bring 2 bowls of porridge over. She brought them to eldest Aunt Gu and Father Bian and said, the doctor said that your stomachs are not good now and you need to recuperate first. It's not appropriate for you to eat too much oil or salt. Therefore, it'll get Aunt Niu to make easy-to-digest food these few days. Porridge, noodles, and so on. Let your stomachs recover first. Bian Yuanzhi, who was putting food into his parents' bowls, immediately dropped his chopsticks and went towards the vegetables. As Gu Dafeng listened, she felt that Yundong had really changed a lot. He was considerate and capable. The porridge and noodles were already very good. In the past, when she was at home, she would eat rough noodles and steamed buns for almost every meal. She had to eat them with soup. Looking at the porridge in front of them, they felt like they were living the life of a rich family. Hence she nodded. Okay, you'll listen to Yundong. Bian also smiled. Unexpectedly, when the two of them turned around, they realized that their bowls were filled with vegetables. When they looked at Bian Yuanzhi, he was looking at them with a look of praise. Not only him, but even Yunshu and Yunke looked the same. Clearly, they had also picked up a lot of food for them. Gu Yundong did not know whether to laugh or cry. Yuanzhi, although it said that you can't eat fish or meat with a good stomach, it doesn't mean that you can only eat vegetables. Those shredded meat are not a problem. Bian Yuanzhi immediately felt embarrassed. Yunshu and Yunke looked at each other and picked up their chopsticks to pick up the meat again. Gu Dafeng quickly stopped her. That's enough. That's enough. Stop eating. Everyone still wants to eat. Only then did the children stop and obediently eat their food. Only Bian Yuanzhi looked at his parents with admiration, as if he would be full just by watching them eat. Gu Daifeng's heart ached and swelled. When she was half full, she put down her chopsticks and fed her son. Although Bian Yuanzhi felt a little embarrassed as he had grown up, he still opened his mouth obediently and ate the food his mother fed him. Gu Yundong heaved a sigh of relief. Although they did not treat Yuanzhi as an outsider, they were not his parents after all. Therefore, Yuanzhi was usually very sensible. He would consider everything carefully and not cause trouble for them. It was probably only in front of his parents that he could act like a child so brazenly. Yunshu looked at it and thought for a moment. He looked at his mother, but Madame Yang looked at Gu Dajiang as if she wanted to ask for food too. Gu Yundong was speechless. She did not see anything. Chapter 8:17. Shao Qingyuan's news. What surprised Gu Yundong was the youngest, Gu Yunka. The little girl was enjoying her meal. From time to time, she would look up at her second brother and cousin with obvious disdain. Despicable? Gu Yundong was stunned. After the little girl finished the food in her bowl, she said proudly, "I'm done. Second brother, come here. I'll feed you." Gu Yunshu. Gu Dajiang was speechless. Shao Qingyuan. Gu Yundong was speechless. Fortunately, she had swallowed the food in her mouth. Otherwise she would have spat it out. Gu Yunshu quickly lowered his head. He did not hear her. Only Madame Yang paused and silently handed her bowl and chopsticks to Yunka. Kiki. Gu Dajiang quickly stopped her. Lunyang, why do you want Kiki to feed you? Madame Yang said. Feeding seems to make the food taste better. No, that's just your imagination. On the other hand, Bian Yuanzhi was a little embarrassed. Gu Yundong did not know whether to laugh or cry as he diverted Madame Yang's attention. Mother, if you don't eat now, your favorite sour and spicy lotus root will be gone. When Madame Yang heard this, she quickly put away the bowl and stopped talking about feeding. Only then did everyone look away. Yuanzhi stayed in Gu Daifeng's arms and leaned against her. It was only when Yunshu and Yunka had finished eating and called him to come down that he reluctantly got off the bed and said to Gu Dafeng, Father, Mother, I'll help Auntie Nyo tidy up the room. Can I sleep with you tonight? Of course you can. Bian Yuanzhi then dragged his cousins out. It was only when the three of them left the reception hall that they felt a little more at ease talking. At the mention of Bian Han's legs, Shao Qingyuan, who had been silent, suddenly asked, Are Uncle's legs very serious? Gu Dajiang glanced at him. He was climbing up the ladder quite quickly. He was calling Bian Han uncle just like that? Bian Han had already gotten over it. He touched his legs and said, They're quite serious, but it doesn't matter if the legs can't be cured. Just as Yundong said, I can still do some carpentry. Mrs. Run sold wooden carvings. It seems that business is quite good. It's good that you think that way, Gu Dajiang said. But let's try visiting a few more medical centers. As long as there's a glimmer of hope, we won't give up. Gu Dajiang was a man. He knew very well that as the head of the family, Bian Han might sound relaxed, but he actually felt terrible. He wanted to take on the responsibility of a husband and father, not a burden to these two. Wooden carvings could indeed bring income to the family, but it was still inconvenient to live. He still had to rely on his wife and son. If this continued, he would still feel defeated. Let's go to Huimin Medical Center tomorrow, Gu Yundong said. Shao Qingyuan lowered his eyes. After a moment of silence, he said, Huimin Medical Center is indeed the largest medical center in Shuanhe Prefecture, but according to what I know, a doctor who is good at treating legs and bones recently went to the medical center in Wanqing Prefecture. He was in the medicinal herb business now, so he had more contact with the medical center and was well informed. Wanqing Prefecture's medical center? Why did he go there? Shao Qingyuan thought for a moment. To be the doctor in charge? Gu Yundong choked. The Xian family used to live in Wanqing Prefecture, so the branch of Huimin Medical Center was not open there. Now that the Xian family had fallen, they immediately opened a branch there. However, it seemed that they had limited manpower, so they brought the doctors there. Then what should we do? Gu Dafeng asked worriedly. Chapter 8:18. Shao Qingyuan has a candidate. Shao Qingyuan had already put down his chopsticks. Hearing this, he said, I have a candidate here. Who? Gu Dafeng asked anxiously. I'm opening a pharmacy in the prefectural city. I need a doctor to preside over the shop. Shao Qingyuan looked at Gu Yundong. I've already told you that I've found a doctor. He happens to be good at this. If you think it's okay, I'll bring him over tomorrow to take a look at eldest uncle. The doctor had already arrived at the prefectural city and was now living in the courtyard behind the medicine shop. However, the pharmacy was still being repaired, so it was still a little noisy during the day. Shao Qingyuan gave the old doctor silver, so that he could go to any tea house to drink tea, listen to books, or go to a beautiful pavilion to play with birds with other old men. However, the doctor was not interested in these things. After he came to the prefectural city, he went to the nearest medical center to discuss medicine with them. Today was the first day. It was said that he had been scolded. When the old doctor returned, he complained to Shao Qingyuan that that lousy medical center was not good at all. The doctors inside were useless and arrogant. Shao Qingyuan suggested that he go to Huimin Medical Center to take a look. The old doctor planned to go there tomorrow. But there were patients here, he thought. The old doctor would definitely be more willing to treat people. Shao Qingyuan had always been reliable. Gu Yundong knew that if that doctor did not have any ability, he would definitely not have suggested it. Therefore, her eyes immediately lit up. Without thinking, she said, All right, then bring him over tomorrow. With the matter settled, the few of them heaved a sigh of relief. After dinner, Shao Qingyuan went back. The small courtyard was not very large. There were only a few rooms. It was already a little crowded for Yuanzhi and Yunshu to come, let alone eldest Aunt Gu and her husband. Since there was no place for Shao Qingyuan to stay, he had to return to the pharmacy. After he left, Gu Dajiang let the two of them rest. After a long day, their emotions fluctuated. They cried and laughed at the same time, and most of their energy had disappeared. They were indeed very tired. She returned to her room and slept on the soft bed. Her son also returned to her side and lay between the two of them. Even though she was very tired, she could not fall asleep. After a long time, Bian sighed. I didn't expect to leave the Zhou residence and see Yuanzhi again. Gu Dafeng nodded. She really thought that she would be busy in the Zhou mansion for the rest of her life and be tortured by Gu Qiyue until the day she died. Bian Yuanzhi was sleeping in the middle. He looked at his parents and smiled in satisfaction. Gu Dafeng reached out and rubbed his head. Yuanzhi, tell father and mother how you've been living for the past year. Also your sister. At the mention of Bian Mulan, Yuanzhi was still very sad. He whispered about what happened after he was separated from them. From the moment Bian Mulan couldn't take it anymore and entrusted him to the Ding family before she died, to the time when the Ding family was unwilling to continue raising him and sent him to the old Gu family in Gu village. As for his days in the Gu family, he did not elaborate. However, Gu Dafeng had long known what the old Gu family was like. She also knew how difficult Yuanzi's life was. Later on, Gu Yundong came to the Gu village and deliberately plotted for the Ding family to bring him out of the old Gu family. His difficult days finally ended. In the end, Gu Yundong went to the place where Bian Mulan had died. She moved her urn out and brought it back to Yongfu village for burial. Speaking of this, the family felt sad again and cried fiercely. Chapter 819. Those things. At this moment, Gu Dafeng was especially grateful to Gu Yundong. Your cousin has really done too much for us. Yes, my cousin is very powerful. On the way to escape, Aunt and Yunshu and Yunka came to Yongfu village under my cousin's protection. Eldest uncle was also found by my cousin. My cousin does many more things. Speaking of Gu Yundong, Yuanzi's eyes were filled with admiration. Gu Dafeng and Bian looked at each other lovingly. Yes, you have to be as good as your cousin in the future. Bian Yuanzhi nodded hurriedly and began to talk about the days when he came to Yongfu village. He said that he met Yunshi's teacher as soon as he arrived in the county city. Then his cousin asked the teacher to take him in as a student. Gu Dafeng and her husband were stunned. What did you say? You went to school? Yes, my cousin said that you don't have to take the imperial examination, but you have to know how to read. If you study hard, your future will definitely not be bad. am studying in the county school with Yunshu now. Our teacher is very impressive. He used to be the top scholar, and has very strict requirements for accepting students. Yunshu studied well, and was chosen by the teacher. However, I don't even know how to read, so my cousin spent a lot of effort to get the teacher to accept me. Gu Yundong expressed that she did not. Gu Dafeng and her husband were stunned. Although Gu Yundong had told them some things today, she had never mentioned that Yuanzhi was going to study in a school. Moreover, this school was not one of the small private schools in the village. The teacher was a big shot. Gu Dafeng was speechless. Who would have thought that Yundong would give Yuanzhi what she wanted to offer, but could not afford? Bian Yuanzhi was still talking. He said that the Gu family now had a workshop in Yongfu village, and had more than 100 long-term workers. He also mentioned that there was a shop in the county city. Not long ago, she had opened a shop in the prefectural city and a milk tea shop with someone. It was also said that eldest uncle had entered the best school in the Xuanhe prefecture to study, and had been personally assessed by the mountain elder. The person who introduced him was the top scholar of their school. He also said that Shao Qingyuan was highly skilled in martial arts. When Shao Qingyuan was questioned by eldest uncle, he stood at the entrance motionlessly under the sun and rain. Shao Qingyuan treated his cousin, and treated them very well. He even said that his cousin had made super delicious cake and candy. Not only did they like it, but even their classmates liked it. He also talked about many things that he had experienced after coming to Yongfu village. Gu Dafeng and her husband were shocked at first, but then they became numb. They felt that many things in their minds had been overturned. They could tell that their eldest brother's family already had some assets now. If their eldest brother could afford a carriage and servants, their lives would definitely be worlds apart from before. However, the difference was not to this extent. Why did it sound like their eldest brother was even more powerful than the Zhou mansion that trapped them and made them tremble in fear? The impact was a little huge, and the couple could not maintain their expressions. In the end, Yuanzhi was too tired and fell asleep as he spoke. Only then did the two of them close their eyes and fall asleep. It was probably because they slept too late and had not slept so peacefully for a long time, so they woke up a little late the next day. The Gu family did not disturb them. It was only when Shao Qingyuan brought the old doctor, and shouted for the patient the moment he entered that the family of three got up. The three of them immediately felt a little embarrassed and quickly got up to leave. When they came out, everyone saw that their eyes were red and swollen. They knew that they must have cried again last night, so no one said anything.